from campuses across the country. 30 drivers split across 4 weeks of high-octane racing. Every corner counts, every point matters. All leading to one moment, crowning the British University Sim Racing Series champion.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the third and final round of the British University Sim Racing Series before everyone gets their ticket to the grand final. My name is Zach Sweeney. I'm going to be your host for this evening. Alongside me are our brilliant commentators Nathan Richards and Adam Reed to talk you through all of the racing action this evening. Nathan, 3 more races to go before we then gear ourselves up for that very intense grand final on the 16th of April.
Yes, can't wait, of course. 3 more races to go before, of course, we get to the finals, which are going to be brilliant. Can't wait to get to that. And I think the great thing is, we've seen now over the first 6 races, at least, I'd say, 6 drivers, maybe even more, have been involved in podium battles, have been involved in fights for pole position and fights for good qualifying. So I think, you know, another night of that, we're probably going to see even more drivers get involved. And then hopefully, once we get to the grand finals, you've got maybe most drivers who you could put in shouts of getting into a good position. So once again, 3 brilliant nights for drivers to get onto track. And of course, you know, of course they've been to Oulton Park, it's a different layout, but 2 other circuits that they can get to learn.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And we were talking, Adam, of course, of Oulton Park. It's a circuit they were familiar with to some extent over last week. But our other 2 venues, I mean, Oran Park, we were talking about, it's now a housing estate. So for a lot of these drivers, tonight really is that big challenge, the final opportunity to sort of get themselves race ready for that all-important grand finals.
Yeah, indeed. Hello, Zach. Also, as we kind of talk about Oulton Park, it's, you know, it's a relatively, you know, fresh circuit in the minds of all of our drivers. You know, they would have, you know, got to grips with the first kind of couple of corners, and then they would have got to grips with the last sector, which we're going to be doing. Of course, we are at the island circuit, which is basically the circuit cut in half, really. So there's going to be its own challenges, but of course we've spoken on those said challenges already. It's just kind of those last 2 ones. We go to Oran Park down in Australia, so that's going to be completely new. We've got a kind of a figure of 8 circuit to go with that one. So many challenges with that one. I'll be impressed to see what our drivers can do. And then we head to the country of Spain for the first time in Navarra. You know, a brand new circuit now acquired by MSVR, and I'll have to really keep an eye on, you know, what can these drivers do, because the track is pretty good there for MX5 racing. But yeah, it's just about getting up to grips for our drivers on the grid tonight.
Indeed so. Well, let's take a look as to how the championship itself works. The format in of itself, of course, we've got our team's championship. We fought our way through the heat rounds, if you like, through the last couple of weeks. This is the final of those 3, and then in a few weeks' time, on the 16th of April, we'll be taking to the grand finals, where they can contest for 3 lots of British Touring Car Championships, championship rounds, 2, of course, a round of their choice for our top 3 in the Drivers' Championship. There you can see the points paying position. First, of course, gets 25, second 22, 2018, blah 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 blah, all the way down to P20, getting themselves 0 points. Of course, the victory understandably rewarded the most by having the biggest gap between each position. You can see it's 3 between 1 and 2, and of course 2 between 2 and 3. So you really are rewarded, you really are encouraged for going for those race wins, and of course a point awarded for each of the fastest laps, which means over the course of an evening there are 3 of those available. Crucially though, Nathan, with the great reset that's coming on the 16th of April, well, the points that have been accrued over the last three weeks, no offence, over the last 3 weeks, it means diddly squats when we get to the grand finals. It's all to play for when we get to, of course, the in-venue for us, still online for the drivers as they contest for the British Touring Car Championship tickets.
Definitely. I think the thing it does show us, though, you know, especially us and also the drivers as well, is, you know, who we expect to be up there heading into the grand finals, because they've now had 6 races. We'll make it 9 here tonight. You're going to look at the levels of consistency. You might see a few drivers who were up in the top 5 that maybe have only had 1 podium, or maybe you've never been up in the, you know, the front, on the front 5 in qualifying. There's going to be lots of consistency we're going to look at here, because heading into the grand finals, even though they know, you know, they're not going to be there, they're not going to have everybody actually watching them, there's going to be a bigger audience, And of course, it's just a bigger stage, so you're going to have a little bit more pressure on you. And of course, that's something that the drivers are going to have in their minds, that big pressure of knowing that they're being watched, and also knowing that they're fighting for some very big prizes.
Yeah, I mean, uni students probably, to be honest, can't afford to go to a British Touring Car Championship round of their choice. So nice that they, of course, got those tickets and got that opportunity to go and do it. There you can see the venues that we're going to be taking to over the next couple of hours. Starting, of course, still in Cheshire, of course, at Oulton Park. Different layout to the one that we're used to. Oran Park, of course, that figure of 8. A very undulating circuit as well, obviously, as you go over the circuit and under it twice. But, of course, all the way through the squiggly section at the back end of the lap, very, very intense. Obviously, turn 1 leading into turn 2, almost combined G, turning while braking. A big challenge in these MX-5 cars. And, of course, the Circuito de Navarra down in Spain, as Adam was alluding to, a brilliant circuit in terms of MX-5 racing. And, of course, as you can see, turn number 1, that kink right again, and then very much tightens up into almost a hairpin onto a very long flat out section through the rest of the opening half of the lap. A lot of combined G braking, Nathan, and we were talking about the MX-5 challenges because I have to put up with it for the third round of the British Sim Racing Cup in a few days' time. These guys, of course, have had to use the MX-5 for the entire season. We know the challenges, and these drivers definitely know the challenges of this car, and we were saying no downforce really on this 10-top MX-5. You've really got to utilise the mechanical grip and also the braking. Isn't that right, Adam? I mean, when it comes to this car, I don't know how much experience you've got with it, but the MX-5 is a tough one to drive.
It really, really is tough. You know, you've not got like a lot of aero with it. You know, it's a little bit of a box, really. So in terms of kind of the circuits at the moment, I think, you know, Oran Park will have its challenges. I've seen one race around Oran Park in Sim, and that was a Formula V race. So they're pretty similar. I think Formula V might have a little bit more aerodynamic, but yeah, Navarra seems to be very, very technical. You know, you see that kind of the right side of it. You know, look at that going from the hairpin through to the right and then in towards 2 double left. Then, you know, you're really carving through some of these corners. I think Navarra is going to be a massive challenge for the drivers. They're really going to have their work cut out here. So I think they're going to have to just take one round at a time. We already had a lot of kind of chaos in the previous heat. I'm not too sure how much it's going to continue with that. Just because a lot of our drivers will, of course, a week later, they'll be kind of fresh-headed. You know, they'll get to business down on the racetrack, and here are some of the penalties that that were kind of given out last time.
Yeah, indeed so. So you can see Barath Sathish, 10-second time penalty. That was attributed down to 2 separate 5-second penalty incidents. Jake Hansel, Jack Mace and Raul Lagas, all been naughty guys over the course of the 3 races yesterday. It's the first time in this series that we did have those penalties dished out. Of course, you know, from a steward's perspective and from a racing perspective, obviously 2 very different mindsets, if you like. The stewards, of course, a little bit more strict. The drivers maybe a little bit more whiny in terms of what they are expecting the outcome to be, I suppose. Of course, Barath Sathish, the worst of those. Nathan, of course, you're a regular steward for the likes of the Esports World Cup, for the British Sim Racing Cup, for a lot of MS UK championships. Talk us through maybe the implications of these penalties and sort of what the drivers now need to look out for going forwards.
Well, I mean, we don't know nothing about the actual penalties per se, but of course, you've got to be consistent with them as well. If we're giving penalties out for, you know, for contact or whatever it was, if it's a 5-second penalty here, the drivers know for a fact if they, in the next round, cause some contact, it's probably going to be a 5-second penalty, or at least a 5-second penalty. I think one thing that the stewards have got to do early on is set a precedent, and kind of every driver knows the rules, but they never really know what sort of penalties and what sort of consequences they're going to get. So, of course, the first 3 rounds, I don't think we got any penalties. Now we got given, I think, 5 in total, because, of course, Barath got 2 5-second penalties. So they now have an idea of what happens when they cause issues. But, of course, as well, even though they're making mistakes, some of these drivers are also quite new to racing. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Some of them aren't, actually being dirty on purpose, or they're not, being silly. Some of them are just making mistakes, and, of course, you're going to get a consequence. So I think Heading into the grand finals now, they kind of know what to expect, what the stewards are going to do, because I'd imagine it's the same stewarding team, so they've got that level of, right, we know what we can and can't do, and also allow some of those near the top of how much they can push those limits of what will be a penalty and what won't be.
100%. So let's take a look at the standings as things rack up. Daniel Solon, of course, coming into this one, the top dog. 2 victories and 4 top 5s from 6 total races to his name, sees him on 121 points. Only 6 ahead of Jack Mason, Malachi Greenwich on 110. Yet to take a victory is the driver studying at the University of East Anglia. So that consistency really driving him forward. Same to Mitchell Marie at 5 top 5s as well from the 6 races. Barath Sathish on 104. Fabian McEwen, Tom Ballantyne, who did not take part a week ago, dominated 2 weeks ago with 3 wins from 3. Alexander Hughes and Jake Ansell, the top 9 in the championship. Of course, neither of those taking a victory thus far. Of course, you can see Raul Lagas and Ben Driscoll, the 2 drivers that joined us last week, and then of course Joel Pinnell, Andrea Muscarella, who will be joining us this week as well. Same to Giuseppe Lofaro, 13th and 14th, the 2 Italians yet to take a points score, and well, hopefully that's going to change over the next 3 races. Of course, we're moments away from getting the first race underway at Oulton Park. Nathan, very, very quickly before I jump out of the commentary box, what are we going to expect?
Chaos again. Of course, we're at Oulton Park, we're at the shorter layout, so that's going to be something interesting. I think once again, you know, with a couple of new drivers as well taking part, they're looking to try and kind of set themselves on the grid. But then those fighting for the top, 6 positions, I mean, there's only around 20 points between them, so they've got lots to fight for. And of course, if Tom Ballantyne's back, then I'm sure he'll be back there ready for the taking once again. So I think you've got at least 7 drivers who are all in hopes of trying to get to the top of the standings before the end of the evening.
Well, a lot of pressure on these drivers' shoulders. Let's jump ourselves into qualifying. Adam, Nathan, take it away.
Absolutely. Here we are at the Oulton Park circuit, close to Cheshire, and we've just ticked down to qualifying. You kind of just missed the first minute of the session, but here we are with Fabian McEwen, the only Irishman on the circuit, and have a look down there in P6. Tom Ballantyne is back, and Nathan, it's great to have him back, but I just wonder for his championship rival Daniel Solon, who's been here for the last 6 races, because he's been leading the last 3, will there be a little bit of confidence in his kind of system to be able to go and challenge maybe Tom Ballantyne, who may be a little bit rusty, of course, due to not being here? It could be a massive, massive fight between the 2 of them.
I think it will probably be a big fight between the 2, but given that Daniel Solon has like 50 points, in his pocket that he has over Tom Ballantyne, even if he finishes like P2 every race and Tom Ballantyne wins them all, that gap comes down by 6 points. So I don't think really Daniel Solon has to worry as long as he's getting podiums, as long as he's up there in the top 5. If he turns up and ends up doing everything the first 2, there's probably going to be lots of worry. Not just because of Tom Ballantyne, but everybody else behind him. But I think Tom's not his big focus at all. I think maybe in terms of the racing aspects, of course, but in terms of drivers that'll be there fighting with him for the championship, it'll be those who are in and around him, and the likes of Jack Mason, Malachi Greenwich, etc. Those will be the ones that I think Daniel has to focus on. But we are having some lap times coming in here, Adam, and at the moment Fabian McEwen goes quickest with a 1:11.759, a lot quicker lap times than what we saw, of course, last time out at Oulton Park on that different layout.
He has done, and we'll just see what everyone else can run over that at the moment. Of course, just over 1.5 kilometres, as that seems to be the number 19 going onto the gravel, that being Raul Lagas. So a costly error already in the early stage for him, and of course you don't get too many laps here. 3 laps is all you get here, and then of course you're going to be able to complete that within about, close to, 4, maybe 5 minutes, close to that. So, you're spending about half the session. So expect maybe for the last 2 minutes for no action to happen. We now have a look at the 1-2-8 in here. Fabian McEwen is still at the top of the standings. Jake Answell, of course, the debutant last time out, now sits half a second behind McEwen. So these 2 will be the clear ones on the timing board, but kind of wait for the rest of the field to pass through.
Indeed, and I think one thing that this shows here is we've already had a couple of minutes in the session, already 4 minutes, and we've only got 2 lap times on the board. So I think that shows the drivers are struggling with this layout. I mean, I've personally never driven this layout of Oulton Park. I've only driven the GP layout or the long layout of whatever it's called. Never drove this layout, so I don't really have much to say on whether it's going to be hard or not. But by the looks of it, it doesn't look like the easiest layout. And these MX-5s to drive fast are an absolute... it's a horror. Of course, they are easy to drive, but very hard to master, as the saying goes. So... a couple more cars looking to come through to complete their laps, and I think this might be Jay Cancel again crossing the line. I'm not quite sure. We'll see once they do cross. Here is Jay Cancel, as it was Raul Lagas in car 19 crossing the line. Here is Jay Cancel making his way through to the chicane, and he's still half a second off, but so surprised that we haven't got more lap times on the board here.
Yeah, indeed. I would have expected maybe a couple more, but it looks like Jay Cancel is indeed on his last lap. He's still looking at half a second off Fabian McEwen. So at the moment, he will be putting himself on the front row of the grid with the 1 minute 12.234. Raul Lagas will look to improve his lap time with the 1:14.177. He's almost 2 seconds down compared to our top time. Fabian McEwen's gone over the line at 1:11.861. So very consistent there from the Irishman. Jake Hanswell will head up Deer Leap and on towards the timing beam. Will he be able to improve lap time there? He does, 1:11.990. So entering the 1 minute 11th for the first time. And here is the one, number 19 again of Raul Lagas. Can he improve from his 2.2 seconds down?
Well, he's going to have to try a lot. But then again, you're 2 seconds down on a 1 minute 11 lap shows how hard it is to get through the corners at such a high speed, and with consistency over the lap. As Raul Lagas, it was a 1:14.1 and doesn't improve again and takes a trip into the gravel at turn 1. So no improvement there for Raul Lagas, who ends up third. I'm hoping we get to see some more drivers, but at the moment only 3 of them seem to have been out on track, and that's Fabian McKeon, Jay Cancel and Raul Lagas. And at the moment, Fabian McKeon looks like he's getting a nice easy job of taking pole position here, because I don't think there's many others about at the moment, unless some of those that are here are choosing to start at the back of the field rather than compete in qualifying.
I don't think it should be that you try and start at the back of the field here, Nathan, because, of course, it's a very, very difficult, first couple of corners. Of course, you've got Old Pool, and then you go down into Dentons and Cascades, and then you've got that really, really weird section which then goes into the Knickerbrook chicane. So it does seem to be the qualifying is kind of wrapped up for now. I'm not sure if there's been like a but we've only had 3 lap time being put on the board, which is a bit of a shame. I'd have liked to see what other drivers could have done, but I think all the chaos is going to now happen in that opening lap when they head down in towards Cascades, have to go off to the right instead of the left-hander, and then try and negotiate a chicane, which almost going to feel like a hairpin to this car.
Yes, definitely, of course. We know the Masters aren't easy to drive. Well, they are easy to drive, hard to master. I even went against my own saying earlier on. I've driven them a lot as a rookie. As someone who's not good at the game, I'm stuck in the Masters and the Formula Fords and the Formula Vs. It's not easy to be quick in. I can drive it perfectly fine, and I'll sit there and I think, well, how am I 3 seconds off pole in a 1.5 kr rated lobby? I'm just not good at extending the limits of the car and just pushing it to its extent. That's hard to do. Of course, you've got to use a lot of brake rotation in the Masters to be quick. There's a lot of corners with a lot of braking, so you'll be using a lot of brake rotation. If you can't master that, you're going to be losing a lot of maybe not a few seconds, but you might lose a second or 2 over a lap, and that could be potentially what we saw from Raul Lagas, being 2.5 seconds off the best time from Fabian McKeon, who looks very comfortable up at the front. Of course, we'll see if everybody else as well can set some lap times up on the board, but I believe qualifying is complete, and now it's just about waiting until we can get into the session and head into racing. But I mean, heading into this one, Adam, I don't know how much iRacing you actually do as a driver. What would your mindset be heading into this final event? Of course, the points are going to be scrapped at the end, so it doesn't really matter how many you're on. But I suppose it's all about pride, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think kind of the main saying, I think, for the drivers would be just stay out of chaos. Try and survive that first lap, then get yourself into a rhythm. We've got about a 20-minute race ahead of us, so a lot can happen in that race. You're going to have to act aware. act cautiously as well. And I think it will be a really good setup. All of this is really to build confidence towards that grand final, because you're going to be in that same setting. The mindset may be a little bit more heightened. You're aware that the stakes are going to be very much on the line. So it'll be very interesting to see how this is all going to really pan out. As you say, Nathan, this is going to be really, really chaotic. Again, I can only really, since that first lap is going to be one of those ones where you have to really look out. It might be kind of like Oulton Park last time, where there was so much happening in the first kind of half of the race, and then kind of just petered out in the second.
Yes, definitely. And of course, while we've got a little bit of time, of course, you yourself have been to the Confetti X arena, because you are at Nottingham Trent, aren't you, Adam? If I'm correct. Yes.
I go to the London campus.
Okay.
So
but you are
we have a Nottingham. I am, yes. I'm under the university, but we have a Nottingham campus and London campus, yeah.
Of course, you've been to the Confetti X before. I mean, for the likes of me and for viewers, what do they expect from it? Because I've seen some pictures and it looks brilliant, but I mean, what are we going to expect from going there? Because it looks really fun, and of course we'll be there ourselves with Zach, taking part in the commentary there. I mean, what should we expect? Because it looks really good.
To be honest, I think the drivers are missing out on this one. It's a fantastic venue. You walk in there and you think, I'm in a proper arena, with all the LED boards that we got in there. We've got kind of like little boxes, where you have like your computer game esports competitions, with your keyboard and mouse and all that jazz, rather than a big old chunky sim rig. So you do feel like you're in a proper arena. So I think we're gonna have to have a little bit of pressure as well as the drivers to. With an audience potentially in front of us. Of course, there is going to be potentially also the box to the side as well. So, really, I think whilst he's there, I think everyone there just has to just enjoy themselves. Really taking everything that they've got. I'm sure Zach's going to be like, yeah, this is kind of normal stuff for me, because he's had many experiences in front of LED boards.
Yes, definitely. No, it's going to be brilliant. Can't wait. Of course, that's only in a couple of weeks' time. 16th of April, as we do get to see the starting grid, and this is all the drivers taking part. It seems that many of them just didn't go out on track here, Adam.
It looks like so. Fabian McEwen did set a lap time. He's ahead of Jake Ansell, and then Raul Lagas. Tom Ballantyne will be on road 2 in P4. Jack Mace will be alongside Andrea Muscarella in P6. That will be a huge interest to see how he does. He's a very, very experienced Mazda MX-5 racing. He could definitely pose a problem for the other drivers, but I believe that seems to be the grid. Not many drivers turning up, it seems like. I think just maybe having a bit of a break, or maybe exam time, dissertations and portfolios to get ready, rather than doing a bit of sim racing.
Definitely, and I suppose as well for some of those that are here week in, week out, if they know the points are being scrapped, I suppose in their mind there's maybe not much of a point being here.
Indeed, there isn't, and away we go. And that seems to be we're down to 3. Here we go off the line, and we head in towards Old Hall Corner. It looks like Jake Ansell now going to be on that inside line, just touching out Raul Lagas on that part. Looks like Mace and Ballantyne, I think maybe even started from the pit lane here. So 2 very experienced drivers heading in towards Cascades, down in towards the right, and then the double right we go. Fabian McEwen has got a great advantage here, but he's gone a little bit too deep in those early stages, and Ansell is going to smell an opportunity.
Definitely around the outside, but can't quite get the move done there. But it was a much needed move there for Ansell to go ahead, because look now, he's under pressure here from Raul Lagas, so that'll be something to keep an eye on for P2. But of course, I don't think it'll be long before we do see Jack Mace and Tom Ballantyne make their way into the party for the top 3. Of course, starting from the pit lane, not doing qualifying. They might have done what I said and gone the extreme with going from the pits. But we'll see what they can do in terms of making their way forward. But you can see they're already in view of the top 3, and they was a little bit further back. So already putting down the pace as they head in towards Lodge Corner.
Did the over deer leap they go to end lap 1, start lap 2. The top three now just running in formation. There you can see Jack Mason, Tom Ballantyne in the back. Tom Ballantyne just trying to dust off the cobwebs, and Fabian McEwen is going to try and go wider, and off goes Raul Lagas. It seemed like a big hit, and that seemed to be the front bumper has come off the car. The hood is gone. That's going to be Raul Lagas off into the pit lane. And you see Jake Ansell potentially trying to go for a move here on Fabian McEwen, but he just can't seem to get the part of that double right-left. We said it was going to be difficult. It looks like McEwen, under very little pressure, is making a couple of mistakes here and there. Wow, that's a slide there from what seemed to be Jack Mason. I think that was Tom Ballantyne with my error in that one.
Indeed, so Ballantyne's ahead of Mace now as they make their way through. Of course, here's Jake Ansell in car 83, who I think now is, of course, in the lead, yet getting past Fabian McKean. It's just not updated on our screen just yet. So it's Jake Ansell in the lead. And this is a replay of what happened to Raul Lagas up at the first corner, and a bit of a slide on the curb. I found that out actually today in the Formula Fords. I know it's a different car, but the curbs are still horrible. When you kind of get into them on the exit and you put your foot down, they do spin you around, and there's no way that you can catch the car. So big shame there for Raul Lagas, as now Tom Ballantyne and Jack Mace are all within a couple of seconds now of the top two. So this will certainly get interesting, but of course Jake Ansell will be hoping that somehow Fabian McKean can keep Ballantyne and Mace behind for the next few laps, but I don't think that's going to be that possible, because those two are absolutely flying at the moment and already on the back of the top two.
Indeed they are. And they head their way on towards the bridge, and you're already now seeing the pressures from behind Tom Ballantyne. We know how quickly he is. Maybe he has, in fact, dusted off the cobweb already, and he's now going to be on the charge heading in towards Struer's corner. That number 66 car is really starting to gain here on Fabian McEwen and Jake Ansell. They'll be looking in their wing mirror thinking, oh dear, we've seen this car before. And he's already looking for a move there up the inside of Fabian McEwen. But McEwen slams the door, it seems like. They'll head over dearly, but on towards the next lap here. I think now Jake Ansell's is thinking, oh, I've got to run away here. McEwen, do you think?
Indeed, so here he is going to be Tom Ballantyne making his way up onto the back of Fabian McKean as they go wide into turn one. It's going to be down towards the opening sector here, and he's already moved on the cars here for Ballantyne. He's closing in as Raul Lagas has got off the circuit, and up the inside goes Ballantyne as they're heading towards the first chicane. They make their way through, and Ballantyne has that move done. He won't be that far away now from taking the lead from Jake Ansell, of course. After he's made the moves, then it'll be the turn of Jack Mace to start making moves and go ahead.
I just wanted to make it entertaining. It seemed like Nathan, they just started from the pits. Was like, yeah, we'll catch them. You know, no worries and that stuff. And here they are. 5 minutes later, and Tom Ballantyne is already staring down the barrel for the race lead here at Oulton Park Foster's layout. He's already sending Ansell defensive. Will he dive up the inside? Absolutely not, because that would have been a pretty rash move. But over we go on towards Lodge and Dearly underneath the bridge that crosses over to the infield of the circuit. Tom Ballantyne now crosses the timing beam, and he's currently sitting in second. Look, did a 1 minute 10.9 on that one. Maze 1 minute 10.7. So the top four now starting to really close up on this one. Raul Lagas is behind, but he is also a lap down.
Certainly, as here we do see the top four heading their way through. Of course, Jack Mace looking to do exactly what Tom Ballantyne did, but hits the curb and hasn't quite got a run into the chicane as they make their way through, and Jake Ansell still keeping ahead in that top spot for now as they make their way through the corner. And then, of course, Jack Mace all over the rear of Fabian McKean, so we could see a move for first and also a move for third as they head their way up towards Druids. Let's see, is there a move for the lead?
It looks like there's going to be so. Tom Ballantyne has put that car on the inside line, and it looks like Jake Ansell is not allowed to go onto the curbing and take that racing line. So Tom Ballantyne will have to be last of the late breakers here at Oulton as they head their way into Lodge Corner. The red beams come onto the back of the car. It looks like Ansell has still got his bumper ahead, but Tom Ballantyne, after what seemed to be just over 6 minutes of this race, will take the lead here at Oulton Park. It looks like Jack Mace is going to try something around the outside there of Fabian McEwen. He's absolutely done the business. Now he's got to get the best exit here.
But Ansell's also got a really good exit on the back of Tom Ballantyne, who defends that inside line as they head their way down into the brakes. Who's going to get the move? It's going to be a move on the cards here for Jake Ansell, because Jack Mace is there on the outside as they head their way in. There's contact and Mace has gone round his, gone half round, collected by Jake Ansell. Continues on in P2, but of course has allowed Tom Ballantyne to run up the road, and it's put Fabian McKeon up into third place. But Jack Mace looking for the move, got caught up there with Jake Ansell, and of course lost crucial time there. And I think has lost about 2 seconds maybe, but Tom Ballantyne, I have a good idea here, Adam, might slow down and have a race with Jack Mace here, because otherwise he's going to, I think, comfortably win here. The top two are just fire on pace, aren't they? I mean, their iRatings say enough. 4.2 and 3.9, that's quite high in the world of iRace at least.
You might as well put a show on for entertainment purposes, because you know you're the best of the two drivers. You know, you start from the pit lane, 4th and 5th, and now you find yourself running in the 1st and 2nd position. So we'll have to see if Jack Mace does potentially back off just that little bit. 113s last time around for the entire field, apart from Jake Ansell. And look at that, Raul Lagas was the best that time last time around, 111.996. But of course there was a big old spinneroonie for Jack Mace. He just hammered the throttle, kind of touring car-esque, spun the wheels up, because it is a front wheel drive car, just over 250 horsepower, and just managed to right it forward. We ride on board here with the Irishman and Fabian McKeown, just trying to go through the gears, through the tune of the engine, and in towards Drew's corner again. He's not going to find that opportunity just yet. He's going to be watching this battle between Ballantyne and Mace like he's sitting in a cinema.
Certainly. I don't know how long we'll be watching it for, because I'd imagine in a few laps' time we'll see the top two fly away, as that's Jack Mace on the outside of Tom Ballantyne, and move for the lead. Ballantyne's going to have a decent run though on the exit of Lodge Corner as they make their way back up to turn 1. And it's a remove again for Ballantyne on the inside line as they make their way down. It's going to be close to being side by side. He's going to have to force the car into the corner ahead. So they make their way through, and all off the track there goes Jack Mace. Through goes Tom Ballantyne, and also Fabian McKeon on the inside of Jack Mace as well, as they head down to the next braking zone. The top two still battling, and for a moment there McKeon was on that inside line as Jake Ansell will go for the send.
He does. He's trying to just stick their nose in. You know, it's pretty risky business doing that, so they've got to be really, really cautious. In terms of the overtaking spots, we've kind of seen already that first section of, the first section of that circuit, past Cascades. That is a diving opportunity. And it seems to be Lodge that's going to be the main hotspot on this one, which I didn't really expect coming into this one. It's kind of a one where you have to really be evidently on that inside line. Big old wiggle there from the number 7 of Jack Macy. He's going to continue to push on forward and potentially see if he can latch on and push fishhook Tom Ballantyne on this one. That 60s game pretty wily on the grass there.
Oh dear me, those two are just having fun, aren't they? You've got Ballantyne who's on the grass, you've got Jack Macy sliding all over the circuit, and Ballantyne there goes to the inside line to defend. Jack Macy's wiggling behind him as they head down towards Cascades and Fosters. Of course, behind they've got McKeon and Jake Ansell, who are just sitting there watching, thinking, well, as soon as we have a threat, they'll just pull away. So we might as well just sit behind and wait for them to crash at hopefully some point, which at this rate could happen, because they are being very silly, and it's it's always fun to see. As you can see, Jack May still shaking the wheel as he heads up the hill, and of course we'll be hoping that I think in the end can still take the win here. So maybe give it another 5 minutes, he'll be a lot more focused on trying to go ahead of Tom Ballantyne.
There is still an opportunity left. 9 minutes left here in the first race of Heat 3, the final heat, before we head to the Nottingham Trent University campus. And there you can see Jake Ansell finally seizing the opportunity to go up the inside of Fabian McKeown. He caught the Irishman off guard there, but Jack Mason now trying to say to Tom Ballantyne, let's have a race here. I'm going to get in your mirrors, I'm going to do whatever. I know I'm going to try and see if we can have a good race on here. They head their way now down on towards Cascades Corner. Head their way down the right-hander. Keep it flat, hard on the brake. Looks like Mason's going to put his nose in there at the the kind of the car just bumps out there wide from Valentine. He's going to allow space on that outside line, but swings the car right around. Mace still saying, hey, I'm here, you got to be careful, you can't just turn in on me because I'm sitting here. I think also now Jake Ansell's going to invite himself into the battle. I wonder if he's managed to find that in his letterbox.
Well, we'll see if Jake Ansell can make a move for second place, because he's got a decent run as they head their way into Druid's corner. He's got the inside line on Tom Ballantyne. He's Tom still to stay there all the way around the outside. It's going to be side by side on the exit, of course, this time round. It's Ballantyne on the outside and Ansell on the inside. It was a different story last time out, and Jake Ansell has got the running towards the final corner and has got the move complete. Jake Ansell back into second place, and they're looking to hunt down on Jack Mace, who actually is pulling over very to the inside, and I think pretty much letting Jake Ansell through at this point, because that gap has flown down the main straight.
Running side by side now out of Old Hall corner. And I'm seeing Raul Lagos in the background, probably thinking, I want to be in there, I want to be in there. Tom Ballantyne up the inside there of the number 83, getting on a little bit on the grass. The circuit starts to compress there, going right around the outside, trying to carry all the momentum. And again, Fabian McEwen is trying to get himself involved in that one, looking to get past Jake Ansell. Ansell's confident. I think it's really starting to, really starting to cruise every single time he turns a lap around one of these circuits in this car. You know, there's starting to be something bright from the number 83 car, and I think he's going to be a real force come the grand finals. They head their way through Druids once again here on lap 11. At this moment in time, you're just now seeing the battle between the two leaders happen once again. Is Mace going to go for it up the inside? I saw the brakes on the brake lights on the red and black car start to go a little bit later than the all black car. Tom Ballantyne back on through.
Certainly is, as they head their way back down to turn one again. Fabian McKean on the back of Jake Ansell into the opening corner, but no move made there. And once again, Jack Mace though losing time out of Old Hall and down towards Cascades and Fosters. That gives Ballantyne an opportunity to close in again between car 7 and car 66. Of course, Mace on the inside, Ballantyne now braking later, taking it all the way around the outside to get the outside into the first part of the chicane, the inside at the second part. Of course, if you can get a good exit here, we could try and pull clear of Jack Mace before they head in towards Knickerbrook, but Mace has still got that inside line and still keeps that top spot. But Ballantyne is right on him as they head their way up the hill. A slight bit of contact as they head down towards Druid's corner, and Jack Mace, I think, will still have the better line on the way in.
You will do. Oh, a little bit airborne there from Jack Mace. The car just sitting on the curbing there on the inside line. Now heading on towards, this is going to be Old Hall. This is going to get pretty dicey. Careful, guys. You need to get your cars through in one piece to continue this race, because this could very, very easily, this could very easily come to blows. I want to just quickly say, Nathan, they're genuinely running, like they've been teammates for the past 3 years as well. They're running so well together. Yes, their pace kind of differences all throughout this, but, the kind of the chemistry between racing with these guys has been almost second to none. It's been brilliant to see. As I said, it looks like they've been teammates for like the last 3 years, but evidently they've only just kind of started racing 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the great thing we saw, and ever since the first race, a few weeks ago, we saw that these drivers all had some brilliant racecraft with each other. They all knew the limits of how each other raced, and heading into this one, they all know what game they're playing. They're driving so that on purpose. They want to, kind of keep Ansell and McKean in it, so they have a bit of fun, have a bit of a battle, and give us a bit of a show. And the great thing is they know exactly what they're doing when they're slowing down to let them to catch up, or when they're actually having good battles. And when they are battling, it's some great side-by-side action, isn't it, between these four, which is lovely to see. And of course, despite we having got the biggest turnout, we're still getting some brilliant racing as we head our way onto another lap, and there's 4 minutes to go until we see the checkered flag. And then of course that's when I think it'll all be out between the top two here, because they will want to fight for the win, of course.
Indeed it is. And we'll have to see how they do. Heading on towards
as we
Cascades.
head our way back down towards Cascades and Fosters, and still top two carry on. They have this time though decided to pull away a little bit from Ansell and McKean as they head their way into Hislop Chicane, and then of course in towards Knickerbrook. And then, of course, McKeon on the back of Jake Ansell for third place as they head their way out of the next corner. And, of course, heading their way up towards Druids. And we'll see if that battle for third continues on, because Fabian McKeon did have a really good lap in quali, but just seems in the race not to quite being there, Adam.
It is still cooking away, still in the oven. So we'll have to see how they all kind of work this one out. And Tom Ballantyne's going to posting a personal best this time around. So I think he's kind of starting to leg off away from the back two here. Mace is going to go with him, it seems like. But now McEwen is just going to try and maybe make a move at some point. But I think Ansell's way too far away. So this is going to be the main battle on the circuit. There's 2 minutes and 50 seconds to go. I'm just doing kind of a live kind of checker of the standings, and you know, I want to put in some numbers, but I have absolutely no idea who's going to become first, second, third or fourth. It's absolutely amazing. Jack Mace, again, still putting Tom Ballantyne under a bit of pressure. You know, the last thing I want to do is kind of put Tom Ballantyne first, and then Jack Mace just steals it right to the end. That would be a little bit troublesome, but over the course we go, over the course grass they went, and they're just licking up a little bit of dirt here at Oulton Park. I don't think Jonathan Palmer's going to be too happy about that. He might want a word with these drivers, but of course it's in the virtual world, so you know, don't worry about that, Jonathan. We'll you know, just worry about your real life circuits compared to what's going on here. Jack Mace will go into Lodge Corner. Will he have another look down the inside of Tom Ballantyne? The gap does close just that little bit, but still a little bit of time left on the board.
Of course, looking at lap times here, they're around a second quicker than Ansell and McKeon, so it's not the biggest gap in the world. You know, it's a second a lap, so it could definitely be a lot better than, I think in the first three races Ballantyne was way more than a second a lap quicker than most. So either the other guys have got a little bit quicker, or maybe Ballantyne hasn't done as much practice, because those gaps have kind of went from being maybe 3 or 4 seconds a lap quicker down to 1. To make our way through in towards the chicane. Of course, Raul Lagas, who's still here, but unfortunately had the contact at Old Hall Corner very early in, had to go and get towed back to the pits and get his car fixed, but at least he'll come home and take a P5. It'll still be decent points on the board, but of course, in terms of the championship heading into the end of this, I'd imagine, despite, unless there's any big issues for Jack Mace, he'd probably be the champion, because I think even if the next few races went like this, Ballantyne would only gain in like 10 points maximum. So Jack Mace would get more than what he needs over Daniel Solon. So I'd imagine that he'll be the, you know, I suppose the heat champion before we head to the grand finals.
Indeed we are. I'm just having a bit of a sighter at what's going on in the talent chat at the minute. You know, somebody wanting to invite themselves in. Sorry, you're not allowed. But I won't say a name unless you want to throw them out there.
Zach Sweeney,
but,
of course I'll say.
Of course.
Give me any opportunity to talk about Zach. You wanted to drive a controller.
I wonder how well that will go down.
Not very well. He can't do well on a wheel, never mind on a controller.
Jack Mace is just about managing to keep control of his Mazda MX-5. The clock does hit 0. Jake Ansell will now feel a little bit of pressure here from Fabian McKeon, which he'd been doing for about half the race. So McKeon wants to try and get something out of this race where he started from pole position. Through Druids Corner they go, and he's not quite been able to do so, but the light is seemingly fading here at Oulton Park. But in towards the final corner at Lodge Corner, we'll talk about what's happening behind after the line. Here we go over the timing tower. For the first time, it's going to be Tom Ballantyne in Heat 3 to take the victory, and on the drag race live, is it going to be Ansell? Is it going to be McEwen? It's going to be Jake Ansell by a 10th of a second.
There we go. So, despite the fact there's 5 drivers, we've still got a battle for the win and a battle for third, which is what we love to see. And of course, Jake Ansell taking his first podium, and Raul Lagas there crossing the line in 5th place. And we have a 6th driver. We have a new entry. Andrea Muscarella, of course, the Italian who's new to the series. For some reason, missed the first race, and he's going to be here, I hope, for the second and third. But yeah, there we go. What a race that was, Adam. Despite 4 drivers, still really good battling, and hopefully we'll get Zach's thoughts on that as well, because I think it was still really good action, and that's what we love from our drivers. Even though they have limited drivers, they still give us some really good battling.
Absolutely. We do have Zach back in the commentary box, but I'll give my quick thoughts first of all. But yeah, really, really good stuff. Some great battling between the top 4. Zach, let's have your thoughts.
Oh, well, just really good to see. To be honest, I had the race on one screen. I was trying to do some laps on a controller at Oran Park to some varying success. Just on the off chance I was allowed to sort of buff up the numbers a little bit, but alas, that wasn't the case. Party poopers. But it's fine, whatever. I did just go and set what was going to be the provisional pole time by 3 seconds on a controller. But, it's whatever. We'll gloss over that. No, it's a good thing I'm not allowed, because there would be a lot of protests against my name, and my MSUK esports license would get absolutely revoked. You guys, though, were treated to an absolute cracker of a race here at On Park. These guys just couldn't get enough of each other, Nathan.
No, certainly not. It was lap after lap, battle after battle, and despite the fact they probably wasn't at full pace the whole time, still gave us some entertainment, which of course is what we love to see. And of course, Ryan Lagas going off on the first lap still proves this track is not an easy one to get used to at all.
Absolutely not. It will be. It was really good battling, as we've been continuously saying. We've been praising the drivers a lot over the course of this event, and some really surprising overtaking opportunity there. You can see a couple of cars getting airborne. There was Jack Mace having a bit of a slide and just gunning it on the throttle, and then of course we've had a large corner which seemed to be the setting for a lot of hot overtakes there, and that was Fabian McEwen, I believe, right at the end there on that outside line. Could he get the traction? Absolutely not, over dearly. He tried to run it as close to the white line as it possibly could over the line, but unfortunately it was the 4th place for him. But nonetheless, I think there would have been a lot of successes, but I think Oran Park, Zach, will be very much a different story.
Well, it's going to be chaotic to say the least. There's a lot of undulation at Oran Park, of course. The curbs are quite brutal. And again, similar to Oran Park, as you go through the cascades, where you're braking just on the compression a couple of times with that at Oran Park as well. Of course, the MX-5 are very stable relatively platform, but as we alluded to a bit earlier on, no aerodynamic assistance. It relies heavily on the mechanical grip, of course, of the 4 tyres, and it does mean that it is quite prone to sliding. The problem with that, Nathan, is that it's not got very much power, which means that if you do slide, it's very difficult to then regain that disadvantage that you get. So slow, smooth, and maximising exit speed is going to be absolutely vital around Oran Park.
Yes, definitely. I've drove around Oran Park a while ago. I didn't even realise it was still being used, just because I haven't driven there for so long. But when I was out in the Masters, it's not fun. You've got to get everything pitch perfect, and if you don't, of course, you get either really poor exit, slow speed, or you hit the grass. And there's lots of grass around Oran Park, and once you hit it once, that's pretty much game over. You'll slide off, whether it's a barrier or whether you go into no man's land, you don't know at all, but it never ends too well. And of course, that's the only worry I think we have with these drivers here. They are getting very, very close, and eventually one of them's going to go a little bit too wide into one of the corners and end up taking them all out at this rate.
Well, all to come, I suppose, in just a few moments' time. Anna, before we go to break, what are you expecting? More of the same from Oulton Park, or do you think overtaking maybe going to be a bit more difficult? Do you think Oran Park is going to open up a bit more of a skill gap? I mean, what can we expect?
Well, Oran Park's a little bit of a difficult circuit at best, as you say, Nathan. There's a lot of grassy patches around there, so you could turn into a very expensive lawnmower. That's the last thing you want to be doing around this circuit. But there's also 1 or 2 barriers around there that you can go into. But these guys are pretty good, I think, around Oulton Park Fosters. I think it's just all about trying to really keep on the tail of the car in front of you. But I think there will be maybe a little bit of a gap between some of the drivers, but I'll be intrigued to see if Andrea Muscarella can get into the race here, because of course he just joined very, very late. But yeah, if we can see him for the next 2 races, I think he's in for a really, really good opportunity with all the massive racing that I've been spotting here and there.
I mean, Mazda's just in of themselves breed really good racing, really slipstream prone, very easy to jump in and gel with. We were saying very difficult to drive on the absolute edge, but to jump in and just give a go, very, very tame, and I think a really good choice for this particular championship. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up the opening race of 3. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in about 14 minutes time, 8 past the hour, for race 2 at Oran Park. Welcome back, Len, ladies and gentlemen, to the second race of 3 for the third and final round of the British University Sim Racing Series on that road to the grand final on the 16th of April. My name is Zach Sweeney, I'm your host for this evening, and alongside me, of course, are Nathan Richards and Adam Reed to take you through the action in the commentary box. Now, lads, off the back of Oulton Park, we're now transitioning ourselves, getting ready, of course, for what is the now housing estate of Oran Park. But, of course, Adam, as we alluded to before the break, still going to be a lot of fun. Fair enough, we've only got the 6 drivers, but I had a chat with Jack Mace in the break, and these lads, they're still going out there, they're still taking it seriously, they're still locking in, and ultimately, very altruistically of them, trying to put on a good show for us as well, and I think that came through in bucket loads over the course of the 20-minute race at Oulton Park.
It did. It was very, very impressive, kind of how they, they're maneuvering the car around Oulton Park. They were really attacking the spaces and really putting each other in each other's mirrors. So I expect kind of the same going into Oran Park. I think, again, our drivers will be pretty kind of freshly minded of what's kind of, how to drive the car, how to, kind of battle well, how to go wheel to wheel. So I'll be interested to see how, they attack Oulton Park, because it's a completely different circuit. It's, very much like Suzuka. It's a figure of 8 as well. So you got the bridge section. So I'll be really intrigued to see how, which driver gets kind of up to speed the best for this secondary race.
Indeed so. Well, let's take a look then at the points championship off the back of the first race of our 3. Of course, we've already ticked off the opening 6, so that's the 7th race of the 9 done and dusted. Jack Mace now leads the championship, 137 points to his name, of course, a victory and 6 of 7 top 5 finishes from Daniel Solon on 121, Fabian McEwen on 111 in 3rd, Malachi Greenwich in 4th, Mitchell Marie in 5th, then comes Brad Sathage, Tom Ballantyne, Alexander Hughes and Jake Ansell, the top 9. Of course, a lot of these guys are absent, so you'll be seeing their points score stay stagnant. Of course, Nathan, while it's a shame to not see these drivers out on circuit, they still do get their ticket, of course, to the grand final, where they can still get themselves those British Touring Car Championship tickets for the top 3 in the eventual championship that we have on the grand final day. What it does mean is that they don't get this extra time to practice. There are a lot of circuits that are overlaps on the calendar for the grand final that we've already raced at over the last couple of weeks. And of course, as well, it's one thing to hot lap, it's another thing to race. They are 2 very different skill sets that the drivers that aren't joining us are missing out on. Those that are here and racing in Oran Park got loads of experience on how to battle wheel to wheel, how to maximise the most out of the car, and ultimately bring home some good points.
Definitely, and of course we've had 12 drivers drive so far in this event, because Joel Pernell has raced, just not scored any points. But I think maybe we'll get a few more for the grand finals. A few more drivers might, tune in, because I know there's a prize on offer, and it's a bigger event, I suppose, with it being the finals. So yeah, we want to see a few more drivers. So then those that have missed out on the practice today will be a little bit less prepared than these guys, but also maybe less prepared than the others that might join in. So you might end up falling a little bit further down the pecking order from where you already are. But of course, like I was saying to Adam earlier on, winning this championship here in the heats is all about pride, but also setting yourself up for the grand finals, knowing who your rivals are. And of course, at the moment, with the weight going so far, of course, if McKean keeps picking up the P3s and P4s, and Ballantyne and Jack Mace pick up your 1 and 2, with the fact they're quite close in the standings, I think after the next race, those 3 will be 1, 2, 3. It'll be Mace, Ballantyne and McKean, or the other way around. So of course they'll be able to get the top 3 there, and it just shows the reward of consistency. Of course, Fabian McKean has not been a driver that has been fighting for wins everywhere, and that has been fighting for pole positions, but he has been fighting for top 5s, and that's shown all through until now, where he's in the top 3. And even before the fact we've only got 6 drivers, he was still up in the top 5 anyway from last time.
Well, let's take a look then at the venues that we're going to be racing around. Of course, we've already ticked off the first one in the form of Oulton Park. We're now going to be taking to Oran Park, before then, of course, the Circuito de Navarra down in Spain. So we do get a very wide variety of nations, of course, starting off in good old Cheshire, then, of course, down under to Oran Park, and then, of course, to the very sunny Spain in the form of Navarra. Adam, of course, when it comes to Oran Park, we've already touched on Oulton Park and the challenges that the drivers face there. there. We've touched a little bit on the challenges at Oran Park, but talk to us a little bit more. I mean, what are the specific, I guess, key zones these drivers need to work out for? Where are the overtaking zones? Where are the key spots of interest? Where might we see some mistakes?
In terms of mistakes, I think kind of the end section, you see where the bridge kind of crosses, and then, you look through that top part, you're going through that way. So it's going to be a anti-clockwise circuit. So you're starting at that bottom line, and then you're heading your way around. I think also because we're on the motor layout, normally, the second hairpin kind of near the heart, the heart shape, the one on the left, that's usually a straight, but we kind of modified it. So we're using the chicane layout. So we kind of got, multiple hairpins to increase the racing action as well. But it's also the fast section, because you've got, a right-left sweeper just before the end of this circuit. I'm really interested to see how, who's going to pick this circuit up and go, yep, I've got this, easy peasy lemon squeezy, because it's such a difficult circuit to get used to. It's not, used too many times on iRacing, but you maybe use it once as well. So I'll be really intrigued to see kind of who works it out best.
It definitely is going to be a challenge for these drivers, as all of the circuits have been. I mean, I think, Nathan, off the top of my head, we've not really had an easy circuit by any stretch of the imagination over sort of round 1, round 2, and now into round 3. I don't think any circuit particularly have showcased itself to be easy. They've all had their quirks, they've all had their challenges, and it definitely has caught people out on certain occasions. I think back to Charlotte, round 1.
Yeah, definitely. I think, looking through the list, the easiest one I think we had was probably Lime Rock Park, because it's quite an open track. There's, you've got that difficult chicane, which is like a triple chicane up the hill. But once you've navigated past that, it's not too difficult. So I'd say Lime Rock's probably your easiest bet, but that chicane's still a killer. Very easy to make mistakes there, like what we saw in that race. And then, of course, VIR I don't think was too bad, but then again, lots of undulation, lots of grass that you can get yourself chucked onto. And then since then, we've had really difficult tracks. I mean, Phoenix wasn't easy at all. Rudskogen, of course, we've had Oulton Park, the Foster's layer, and now Oran Park and Navarra, which are two tracks I hate. They're brilliant to, I suppose, commentate on and watch, but to drive it's so difficult. So it's not been easy for our drivers, but I suppose if we're giving them those harder circuits, that they're challenged at the limits already. It's not like they're going to really easy tracks and then being given a hard one at the end. They've got that level of really difficult tracks they've got to start off with.
Yeah, and of course, even though they are 20-minute races, I mean, that is still a pretty substantial amount of time, especially in the varying skill levels that we've got on the grid for the British University Sim Racing Series. Race 2 of 3 for the final round on that road to the Grand Finals. I'm going to jump out of the commentary box. Nathan, Adam, let's get back into quali.
Indeed, and here we go. So it shouldn't be too long, Adam, until we get underway for qualifying here at Oran Park. Of course, like I said earlier, a track I didn't even know was being used in the game just because I haven't seen it for so long. But I do have memories of it, and for me, the killer corner is turn 9. The medium-ish speed left-hander, where for some reason every time I got there was drivers battling with me. But we do have another driver joining us, Mitchell Murray. We've got a sixth driver. Mitchell Murray joins us, so maybe that thing of seeing Fabian McKinn up in the top 3 could be over, because Mitchell Murray was fighting up there, wasn't he?
Indeed he was. Again, it's great to see Mitchell Murray in there. So we'll have to see how he kind of attacks this circuit. He's already doing exactly that as he heads his way now on towards this next sequence of corners. And then we'll head on towards the Momo corner. I think just due to sponsorship reasons, it's got that name. Through the left hand, it's so quick, so the elevation is very much apparent last time, because I commentated it over quite a while ago, a couple months now, but yeah, it's felt like quite a while.
Yes, it's an interesting track, that's for sure. Of course, as you said earlier, like 15 years ago it was turned into a housing estate, so it's no longer a racetrack in Australia. It's now full of loads of people living there and living their own lives. So as we do see Tom Ballantyne making his way through the final corner, through out of turn 9 in towards the O'Brien dogleg, goes a little bit too deep on the brakes and does what exactly I do every time, goes into the gravel / the grass. So he makes his way out to the final corner, back down towards turn 1 at the sweeper. We'll see what he can manage to do on his first lap, as we have 8 minutes left in the session. So we should see a few lap times starting to pop up on the screen. But One thing here I noticed is Ballantyne and Jack Mace have decided to go out. Now, in the first race they didn't bother. Do they know potentially this is going to be a harder track to work their way up to those if they did start in the pits?
I like your thinking, but we'll have to really see. It's all going to be played out on the racetrack, I think. You know, you can think about that, but at the moment, I think you're going to be one of those where you've just got to try and get as much circuit experience as you possibly can. This will be, massively important. We now see the 83 there of Jake Ansell heading in towards the last corner. Should we get an onboard hot lap here with Jake Ansell? Hopefully he doesn't make a mistake, but we'll have to see if he goes over the timing line. He's at speed here. Let's actually get a lap here with Jake Ansell on towards the sweeper. It looks like we're not going to be able to get a lap time there. An onboard hot lap with him there, so we look to a switch now to what seems to be Tom Ballantyne. He heads his way on towards the Recaro corner. The last corner on the circuit gets right up to the barrier on the right hand side, and he'll head over the timing beam.
Indeed, as it will be P2 there, 6/10 off from the quickest time, a 1:18.380 as Ran Lagas is dead in third place on a 1:18.6. So Tom Ballantyne not quite got the pace we normally see up at the front of things here, as we do see car number 7, so that's Jack Mace, heading his way through that first sector now under the bridge, or over the bridge I should say, over one bridge and under another, as he makes his way through in towards turn 6 and 7. And then of course that tricky number turn 9 at Momo corner, very tricky left-hander to get right, of course, easy to hit the grass and the gravel on the exit as you make your way through. But a nice line carried through there for Jack Mace, and some decent speed as he heads up towards turn 10 and 11, at the chicane dog leg quite type section, and then into the final corner. We'll see what he can set on the board in that number 7 car as Mitchell Murray goes quickest by a second, a 1:16.777.
Indeed he does. And the lap time continue to fly in. So it's Marie from Mace, from Ansell, from Ballantyne, from Lagas. Still plenty of opportunities left in the session. 1:16.777 is the fastest time now. 22 thousandths of a second to Jack Mace there. So that is not the worst advantage in the world. We now see Raul Lagas trying to head through some of the next couple of sweeping corners. And he's currently on a 1:18.609. So still sitting at about, seems to be, 1.9 seconds behind Mitchell Murray. So not the further way back, but you're now going over the bridge, over the hill. You're turning your way through. You're just seeing the elevation. So, so easy to the eye that you can see, and it's been absolutely brilliant to see riding the curb wonderfully. They look to now potentially just get another lap on the board. I think for Lagas, it's going to be the last one.
I think one thing I noticed so far as well is because he got quite wide curved on some of the corners, it shows the limits that the drivers have got to push. The circuit is that's a spin on the inside of the Recaro corner for Raul Lagas, and will have to rejoin and go again, and hopefully not get in the way of anybody else making their way through into the final corner. But as I was saying, because of the curb, you've got to go so wide and push the limits of the circuit. That's Fabian McKeon. I think there's more of anger and driving into the wall rather than making a mistake, because it seemed like it just turned right. But yes, it's not easy to get up to grips with this circuit, and I think we're seeing that so far. Of course, Tom Ballantyne is currently nearly 2 seconds off, which is not what we normally see from him. Normally he's the guy at the top by 1.8 seconds, not being 1.8 seconds behind. As Jack Mace is quickest there with a 1:16.553. Mitchell Murray second with a 16.777. Followed by Ansell, Ballantyne, and then Raul Lagas. Fabian McKeon yet to get a lap time on the board, and I don't think he will.
No, he's taking a trip there through the gravel, so not classic Tom Ballantyne this time around. Maybe a circuit that he hasn't quite practiced in his off time, so he would have been kind of used to the Oulton Park layout from the first heat that he competed in, and then we'll have to see how he does at Oran Park in Navarra, because they're going to be completely new to him. Usually he's able to attack a brand new circuit, as he did with the first heat, but now this is pretty new for him. and he's in a bit of a no man's land at the minute, a zone where he's really, not used to. He'll head over the line and see if he can improve himself and take himself out of the second row of the grid. And it's been an improvement there from the number 66 car. Worrying times for our former championship leader.
Yes, indeed. Not good at all for Tom Ballantyne. Is still 6/10 off Jake Hansel, who I think has done a really great job in this qualifying session, being in the mix between himself, Mace, Marie and Ballantyne. Great to see him there battling high. And then, of course, Fabian McKeon, I don't think will be too happy with his qualifying, because I think he could have also been a driver fighting for the second row in the field easily. And then, of course, Raul Lagas, despite normally being at the back for most races, he's only 2/10 back from Tom Ballantyne. So he's showing some pace here, is Raul Lagas, as Ballantyne goes wide again, heading out of turn 5. And I think, along with the fact he's not setting quick lap times, he's also getting frustrated and pushing the car too much here.
I think he is. He's really just trying to extract every single ounce that he possibly can. It's a shame we can't see sector times, otherwise, we're kind of a little bit left in the dark in this case. He heads his way now onto Recaro corner, and he'll head his way onto the straight, trying to brush up against the pit wall there on the right hand side. He'll go over the line, right up against the wall. And I think he's gone over his excess times there. So, not being able to put in another lap time, that means he's going to now stay at P4.
Yep, indeed, and won't be happy with that whatsoever. So he's got a lot of work to do heading into the race, which is going to be a challenge for most drivers, because it doesn't seem like too easy of a track. Many drivers on their lap time mistakes, and of course Mitchell Marie only got a couple laps in himself. Of course, Ballantyne did get a couple of laps in, but not enough to challenge for third place. And then, of course, I think Jake Hansel also only got one competitive lap in. So it's proving to be difficult for our drivers here in qualifying. So heading into the race, it's about trying to do this again, but also have cars, alongside you, behind you, ahead of you. Makes this challenge even more harder. So it's going to be an interesting first lap, I'd imagine, especially heading through this sector here from exit turn 5 through towards turn 9. You can go side by side, but it's difficult, and you've got to be so in tune with what the other driver's doing. That's going to make it a challenge, but we'll see how they all cope, as it's going to be Ballantyne heading across the line, but has already completed 3 laps, so it's just about getting lap times on the board, not ones that will find him a place higher.
He's definitely been using the second half of that session as another practice session for him. Of course, he just could not get anything out of the session, and you're just now seeing the seas there at Oran Park, but they're a little bit dusty, which kind of makes you a little bit sad in a way, because of course it's a fantastic racing circuit. Just a shame it's now a housing estate. But Nathan, what a bit happened there in qualifying? What was your kind of surprise?
The fact that the drivers couldn't quite get times on the board. I mean, none of them got 3 competitive laps on. Most of them got, maybe 1 or 2, and then the third lap they failed. Of course, Ballantyne only got 1, didn't improve on the final 2, and then Mitchell Marie only got, I think, 1 in as well. So it seems to be quite a challenge for drivers in quali. Of course, heading into the race, we'll have to see what they can do, but I think it'll still be a struggle.
It will definitely be kind of one of those where you've really got to work out kind of absolutely everything. You're going to be really working away on what could potentially be massive moments in this race session. So there will be some really difficult moments through some of the corners. You got the sweep, which is turn number 1. You kind of got that fast left, and then turn 2 will be Coca-Cola corner. Then you've got kind of that heart-shaped section of Sheld and Champion Curve and the Yokohama Bridge. So that's going to be a really difficult section. Then you go back flying through the Foster's Dip. Then you've got the Momo corner, then the O'Brien Aluminium Dogleg. So that's going to be some really good stuff, really challenging stuff, as we saw. And then Recaro corner, the last corner on the circuit. How challenging is that going to be? Because we saw Tom Ballantyne had to pretty much put some of his paint on the Oran Park wall there to finish some of his lap times. But I think this is going to be a really testing race for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. As we can see the grid here, of course, it's Jack Mace on pole ahead of Mitchell Marie, who makes his way into the evening on the second race. It's Jake Hansel in third ahead of Tom Ballantyne, and then 5th will be Raul Lagas. 6th, Fabian McKeon, of course, a driver we didn't see much of in qualifying, went out for one lap and went straight back into the pit lane. But only 6 drivers here heading into this one, Adam. Shouldn't be too long until we get underway. But, I mean, who are you looking at for the win here? Because at the moment, it seems like Jack Mace is the one.
It does. And I think we're going to get potentially even a brand new winner. So we wait for the lights to come out. A lot of waiting, but we go racing here at Oran Park for the first time. A decent start there from Jack Mason, Mitchell Marie. Looks like Raul Lagas has managed to get away. Tom Valentine is looking like he's in the pit lane here as he now gets to go from pit lane to potentially podium here down in towards the Coca-Cola corner. Of course, with the sponsor of Coca-Cola, but we can't see it around the circuit, but that's usually what it's been called the last time around here. And on towards Shell corner for the first time. Jack Mace has got a great advantage ahead of everyone here. Yes, it's still pretty small, but he is managing to guide the drivers around. A little bit of a bump in the road there, so you're going to have to be really careful with the suspension and keeping the weight transfer of the car stable. They head over the Okayama Bridge for the first time. Who's going to be able to eke out the performance in this race here, Nathan?
I think give it a lap or two, Jack Mace will pull away here because he looks so much more comfortable than anybody else on circuit. So I think himself and Mitchell Murray are those are the top two, but I'd imagine Jack Mace, give it a lap or two, he'll fly off. You see, we do see the rest of the field making their way through. Of course, Raul Lagas was ahead of Fabian McKeon, but McKeon's gone back ahead into 4th place. And then, of course, Tom Ballantyne, who started in the pits, is down at the back of the field. Here is the top 2, and Jack Mace is still under pressure here from Mitchell Murray as they head down towards the sweeper and towards Coca-Cola corner. Is there a chance for Mitchell Murray to take the lead?
It could be. Mitchell Murray will have a look around the outside, but nothing doing there. We now see Jake Ansell trying to really keep the car in tune. He's got Fabian McKeown behind him, so these two have already have interest in each other. After especially what was a pretty feisty opening heat race at Oulton Park. Jack Mace will just continue to head now round on towards Okayama Bridge. And I think Mitchell Murray does sense an opportunity. He's got to wake up and smell the coffee first, but, he's got to also spot a gap first and not just go for a rash manoeuvre on towards this left-hander, picking up a little bit of grass there. And now it looks like Murray has got an opportunity.
Indeed, sorry there, Adam, I had my mic muted. And here is Mitchell Murray looking for the move for the lead, but Jack Mace covers his line through 10 and 11 in towards 12. A bit of a jump over the curb there for Mitchell Murray. Also breaks a little bit too deep there and loses time as they head out to the final corner. So close to the barriers out of Recaro corner. And McKeon actually making a bit of contact with the barriers as they head down to turn 1. Is there a move for Mitchell Murray on the outside? He's going to tuck a ball to the rear of Jack Mace, then moves to the outside. So they head into the sweeper. He's still got to stick it at the inside, the outside line. But as evident here for Jack Mace, Adam, it just you can't do anything on the outside there, can you? It's so impossible to make a move.
It is one of the really difficult things to do. You've got to be really, really kind of on your limits on this one. So they head their way through on towards the chicane section and through Champion Curve they go. They go. Really good exit out of that corner. It's going to be a pretty tough one, but you're just seeing now the back three there, Ansell, Lagas, McKeown, all starting to close up. Valentine hasn't closed as much as he would like. He's still trailing a little bit. About 3 seconds behind McKeown in 5th place there. So this could really see a really tough time for the former championship leader. But we'll stick with Mace and Mitchell Murray now. Head their way onto the last corner. Could this be another opportunity for Mitchell Murray to pick up?
Well, it's going to have to, because they head their way down towards the next braking zone, of course. So they head their way through. Oh, is that Jack Mace going round halfway there, I think. He's lost some time. Mitchell Murray is going to shoot off into the lead here, I'd imagine, now. As he's Raul Lagas, seeing car 19 has moved up to P2, so he's looking to fly forward onto a podium potentially here, and Tom Ballantyne is also there for the taking as well up into P5. But what a shame for Jack Mace, as here is Fabian McKeon up the inside.
Oh, what a moment there for Raul Lagas, who could have been a podium opportunity to wrap up with a bow tie. But now he's going to be feeling pressure here from the two drivers behind, that being Jake Ansel and now Tom Valentine, sensing an opportunity. So in a space of half a lap, he's gone from 6th up to 4th place for the number 66 car. Mitchell Marie is now going to have a Sunday drive down under.
Yeah, with 15 minutes to go, I don't think he will come under that much pressure here because his pace does look brilliant. As here's Jack Mace into the final corner, just loses the car, spins round, and somehow Marie got away with it. But what a shame there for Jack Mace, who ended up dropping down to P6 now and at the back of the field. As here is Jake Ansel now, battling it out with Tom Ballantyne. Of course, this is for 4th place. Of course, ahead of these two is Fabian McKeon, 3rd place sitter at the moment. Tom Ballantyne with a good exit out of Recaro corner has a chance to enter turn 1. Of course, Ansel's holding to that outside line. Ballantyne should have a run to go to the inside in towards a sweeper, and then of course carry that inside line in towards Coca-Cola corner as they head their way in, and Ballantyne takes that P3 and P4, sorry, a much needed move for him as they make their way into the corner, and also further behind as well, Raul Lagas dropping behind Jack Mace.
Fabian McKeon in with an opportunity for a podium, which he was unsuccessful at last time out at Oulton Park, but he's now looking to try and put amends on his stake there. He's got seems to be Tom Ballantyne right behind him, so not one of the easier opponents in the field to come across, but the ex-championship leader will have its work cut out, I think, because of course he's really kind of struggled all throughout this qualifying session, through on towards the Momo corner and right on board, in fact, with what seems to be I think that going to be Jack Mace on this one. He is in fact highlighted, so we'll have to see how he goes about this one. That's going to be Tom Ballantyne ahead with Fabian McKeon, so I wonder if there's been previous contact between maybe the likes of Ansel and Lagas, but now Ballantyne has found his chance here to go past Fabian McKeon and in towards the sweeper. He should have the inside line, but can McKeon potentially try and find something heading in towards Coca-Cola corner? He'll switch to the inside line, breaks as lazy bottom he can, but will invite Jack Mace to sweep around the outside.
Indeed, as we continue our way on here, 12 minutes to go in this race, so nearly halfway through. And Mitchell Murray is checking out here, 7 seconds ahead of everybody else now is him. And it's going to look like an easy victory, I think, for him here, as they all make their way through. And of course, Jack Mace looking to try and make something work here and try and get himself higher up in this race. Of course, he's P4 at the moment, looking to go up into P2. If he can do that, then he'll be looking in a very good spot. As what's happened to Tom Ballantyne? He disappeared. Has he dropped back somewhere? Because I can't see him.
I wonder if he's
because you've got Jack Mace, Jake Ansel and Raul Lagas, so where's Tom Ballantyne gone?
I reckon he's DNF'd. I think he's had a moment. Good look at the clock there. The interval says 0-0. I think he's all set forward out of the race there, but McEwen and Mace will have a go at each other. Sweeper could be potentially pretty decisive in this little fight here. Yet Ballantyne is now out of the race here. Through the sweeper they go. Will it be McEwen? It will be Mace on that inside line to just grab that second place. And now he's 7.7 seconds behind Mitchell Murray. He was sitting on that grid, about 10 minutes ago as a potential winner, but it's all come to fruition now for Mitchell Murray. He's one of the fastest out on the racetrack at the moment. Not many drivers around. In fact, there's no one around him. They're all having their own little tussle here over the Okayama bridge. And it all just seems very rosy for the number 16 car.
Definitely, and of course one thing that'll help him heading into the grand finals now is having that gap. And if he knows he can just keep extending it, he's going to be very good when he gets some clean air. And if that's at the front or if that's at the back, if he can drive well in clean air and pull the gaps ahead and have better pace, that's going to set it up well. Especially if he ends up in a situation like this in the grand finals where he's into a leading spot or maybe he's into a podium spot and he just has to keep driving. I mean, even though he's in the lead by 8 seconds, it's very easy to kind of not lose your head, but get a little bit too relaxed and not focus as much. And once that happens, that's when mistakes start to creep in. A lot of these top sim drivers have done it. They're in a very, very calm state up at the front. They lose a bit of concentration, and all that's a bit of grass, or all that's going to be a barrier, and it loses your time. So you've still got to keep yourself in it here, just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And if Mitchell Murray can show it now, it's a very good skill to transfer over. Where we've seen many drivers in this series so far in the first 7 races have a lead or have a good position and just lose it out of nowhere, and that's just due to a lack of consistency. As here is Jack Mace in P2 currently. He's 5/10 ahead of Fabian McKeon and 2 seconds ahead of Jay Cancel. You'd imagine now the battle for third's over. The battle for second I don't think will last much longer here, so this race very quickly could end up into being a nothing race in terms of the battling, but then a test of the consistency and the pace of the drivers in the race, because they're going to have to focus on clean air rather than battling side by side every lap.
Indeed, there are going to be plenty of cases, and we're going to be keeping an eye out for. This place for second is kind of the hot favourite at the minute, the one that's really on the line. We've had that battle for the lead earlier, but it's kind of really scuppered by absolutely everything. So, by everyone batting against each other. So that was going to be really, really unfortunate in that case. But, second still entertaining. Jack Mace having a bit of a problem through that. And now we look at Jake Ansell, who's taking a little bit of gravel dipping. I think looks like now Raul Lagas has gone through on him. So he's now up into 4th place, what could potentially be his best finish ever.
Indeed, and that's what he wants, doesn't it? It gives you so much confidence heading into the final race, is that you can fight for P4. You might have been at the back for the most of them, but if you can do it on one occasion, it proves that you can definitely do it, and that's going to give so much confidence to Raul Lagas heading into the finals in a couple of weeks' time. But also for the likes of him and some of those that are near the back, the great thing is they've got more time to practice. For these rains, they've only had a 1-week break to learn 3 tracks. You're not going to practice every day, so you might have maybe an hour max per track, unless you play all day long, and you might get a couple more. But most drivers probably do an hour a week per track. So once you've got more time, you've got 2 or 3 weeks, you can get a couple more hours in. And I think Raul's pace isn't quite the issue. I think it's the consistency and the mistakes. If he can fix that, no reason why he won't be up there with the others. But I suppose the caveat to that is the fact that drivers also get extra practice, so they'll be all able to improve themselves. So it's all about the I think the effort now heading into the grand finals, how much effort you can put in, because I think Tom Ballantyne's an example of someone who hasn't done much practice tonight, because he wasn't up there in the first race like he normally is, and in this race he qualified 4th and DNF'd or disconnected. That's not what we normally see from him, so the lack of practice is evident.
Indeed it is. So he's going to have to really kind of do a lot of work behind the scenes in the next 3 weeks before we head to the grand finals. Jack Mace Edge making a little bit of a slight error. He is trying to close in here on Mitchell Murray, but time is really against him. He's going to have to gain kind of a second every single minute, which is going to be really, really tough art for him as he heads his way now on. They're really just trying to push as much as he possibly can. It was 7.1 the gap last time around. He's going to be able to maybe close that up, because I guess Mitchell Murray is going to have his foot off the gas pedal just that a little bit, but it doesn't look like the gap is coming down too much. In fact, it's extended by another 1/10 of a second. So we'll look around for the podium positions. It's going to be Mace comfortably in second, Fabian McKeown. Then it's going to be Raul Lagas in P4. So there's still plenty of chances up for grabs here. You've just got to keep it on the tarmac.
Yeah, definitely, which around a lot of tracks is quite easy, but here there's a lot of grass, a lot of gravel, very easy to go off, as we've seen already with a few drivers in qualifying and a couple at the start of the race. As Jack Mace a little bit deep, and I think just dipping a wheel into the gravel there on the exit of turn 4 at Champions Curve. And of course slight mistakes will happen, of course, as here is Raul Lagas, who's fending off from Jake Ansell, who's starting to drop back now from the pace, definitely, which is a bit different to what we saw last time out, and also different to what we saw in Oulton Park last race. Not going too well for Jake Ansell. Of course, 5 minutes to go, so a battle for P4 is on here, as here's Mitchell Murray. And just going on board here as we head on to the next lap, Adam, let's just talk us through, the way Mitchell Murray's driving here to have such a lead.
Indeed, he has. It's just been down to kind of the other drivers. He's managed to shake off, everyone at first instance off the 5 red lights, and then everyone else kind of, had their own little argument, and it's all led into, exactly this. Mitchell Murray being able to spread his wings, extend his gap. And now he's just got to go try and feel comfortable. There is a spinner. I think I heard a squeal of tyres in the background. So I'm not entirely sure if there was either a spinner or if it was just somebody hard on the brakes having a bit of a lock up there. So it looks to me on the track map, everything is A-OK. Now Mitchell Marie is going to really just try and push ahead. He's extended the gap back up to 7.7 seconds. Jack Mace can't really do too much about it. He's going to be trying to overdrive the car, but I think he's going to have a look at that clock and be thinking, there is absolutely nothing I can do at this rate.
No, definitely not. Yeah, it's going to require a big mistake from Michel Murray, but I think even with the gap, if he has a spin, he can get back and probably still keep that P1. So it's going to be very difficult for him to do something now in this for Jack Mace. As we continue our way on, here's Fabian McKeon in third at the moment. Has driven very well, 3.6 seconds behind the back for Jack Mace, but also 4 seconds ahead of Raul Lagas, so that proves he's also got the pace up in the top 3. Of course, whether the top 3 would have stayed with Tom Ballantyne being here, we will never know because he's not. But of course that would be a P4 in the first race and a P3 in the second race here for Fabian McKeon, so we'll put it on the board. And with Tom Ballantyne not being here, that will put him comfortably, I think, into second place in the championship, depending on whereabouts Michel Marie was. But yeah, that really helps Fabian McKeon here having that third place, and of course Jack Mace here in second. I think we'll be very happy to still take the points to probably end up winning the championship. I think there's no doubt about that now. He went into the lead last race. He's just got to get another P2 or P3 here in the next race, and you've got it all wrapped up.
Indeed he does. There is a big opportunity here for Jack Mace to potentially seal a title, I think. I don't think there's a lot of time for me to do the maths here, but I think that would be kind of an off-camera kind of thing. But continuing with this little tussle, Raul Lagas leads Jake Ansell. I'm sure Zach Sweeney is just waiting in kind of his waiting room thinking, I'd love to be out there, wouldn't I just? I'm sure he's doing his own laps and seeing if he can potentially beat Mitchell Marie's time. So we'll have to see how they all kind of come together. But yeah, I'm sure Sweeney's just, clicking his fingers, tapping his toes, and just waiting around.
Yeah, I think he's just hoping that we can get to the checkered flag soon, because he doesn't want, just want to keep driving, just drive, and he seems he's getting, no sort of action on track or entertainment like the other drivers are. But here is Jake Hampson and Raul Lagas making their way through into the final couple of corners of the first sector, and it seems at the moment, I think Raul Lagas might cover that one off, but we'll have to wait and see between these two as they head their way through in towards the bridge section. And I think Raul Lagas will be very happy, but Jake Hampson on the other hand will be very disappointed.
Yeah, I think there will be some drivers walking away from this kind of race feeling a little bit disappointed. They weren't able to maximise the points. Some drivers may be feeling a little bit stuck. And that's kind of maybe the nature of the circuit. It's a very, very kind of old circuit that not a lot of drivers use. So this may have been one of those that kind of went under the radar for these drivers. But again, they're doing some really good stuff here right at the back. Raul Lagas really trying to push on forward. So we're going to be getting another 2 laps out of this race here. Lagas goes over the line ahead of Jake Ansell, and is Ansell going to potentially try and find an opportunity here? I don't think he's got the same confidence that the likes of McEwen, Mason, Marie have in the minute through the first corner of Coca-Cola underneath the Yokohama Bridge. And it just seems to be a little bit of a struggle for Jake Ansell. He's really just not being able to comply with that Mazda. I think he's now going to have to try and sit back and just rely on the next or final race, I should say, at Navarra to try and gather some more points up.
Indeed, so 45 seconds to go here for these drivers, so it won't be long until we head on to the final couple of corners, but Mitchell Murray's been brilliant, hasn't he? 7.8 seconds with the lead as they head on to which will be the final lap now. It's just about getting his way around the circuit and finishing off the race without doing anything silly and getting himself spun off into the gravel.
Indeed he is. He's very, very lucky to be surviving at the moment. So we'll head on to the last lap now. And there you can see Mitchell Murray, who is having a Sunday drive, it seems like. You know, this is, you know, as easy as you could potentially get in a competition like this. You know, you see those high-level GT3 racing. You've got the F1 Sim Racing Championship, which I'm sure will be, pretty tight in terms of their margins over the next 3 days. Mitchell Murray has really put down the pedal, and he has just extended. He got up to about 8.5 seconds at one stage, and he will also take a point as well for the fastest lap with 1:16.650. Jack Mace having a couple of issues there, heading on towards that left-hander. But for Mitchell Murray, he'll head now round the final corner. The number 16 car of Mitchell Murray will head over the line, slide it out, tail wagging like a dog as he wins his first race in the British University Sim Racing Series. He can put a number 1 on the win tally board for himself, and it will be Jack Mace to come over the line for his 5th podium of the championship. McEwen will make it 3rd, his 2nd podium as well. Some great stuff, and a first podium for McEwen since all the way back at Lime Rock Park. Fantastic stuff.
Indeed, great racing between these drivers. Of course, the gaps did increase, but you know what we saw in the first 10 minutes, lots of action, and Tom Ballantyne there proving to us it's not an easy track to get right, and even though you're probably one of the quickest on paper, it's not easy to get to the finishing line. He didn't make it, didn't he? So never mind in the top 5, he didn't get there anyway. But of course, one final race to go, and this is of course the final preparation, ready for the grand finals, as we do get Zach Sweeney back with us.
We do indeed. I think myself and Nathan are on our last legs.
And we can't hear you, Zach.
Hang on.
Zach, are you with us?
I'm here. I am here. Hello.
Apparently not. But, a massively interesting race for sure. I think it was more about the struggles of these drivers, because you saw how much they were really trying to hustle the car around, and at this moment in time you're just seeing some of the highlights. You saw that little battle there with Mitchell Murray and Jack Mace. That was all the way back with the 2.5 minutes into the race. And then, of course, Mitchell Murray spread his wings, sprinted off, and managed to clamber, and a 7.5 second lead. So much interest in this race, but it started to get a little bit petered out by the end. Zach Sweeney should be back with us. Can you hear us, Zach?
Hello.
Well,
there we go.
go.
Can't get rid of me that easy, lads. That is a spin and a half. Goodness me, from Jack Mace. I missed that one when I was tuning along, but suboptimal to say the least from Jack Mace. Lap times were looking good though, lads, and like I was trying to say before my mic very rudely said no, I think myself and Nathan are on our last legs in terms of the lurgies. Good news is that Adam is right as rain and going to carry us through the final race of the day. Once again, lads, it seemed that Oran Park's definitely delivered, Nathan.
Yeah, it's a difficult track. I mean, a little bit like what I used to get when I was racing here in the Masters and the Formula Vs. It's not easy, and I think most drivers proved that with a mistake here and there. Of course, Raul Lagas was getting the better of Jay Cancel in the end. Of course, Ballantyne was out of the race. Jack Mace having the spin at Recaro corner, and then Fabian McKean also had a couple of excursions there off track as well. The only driver that didn't make a mistake was Mitchell Murray, and got rewarded with an 8-second win. So I think overall, he was proving that if you don't make mistakes, it really pays off heavily. But, of course, heading in towards the final race at Circuito de Navarra, another track which I don't think is as difficult as this, but it's still a bit of a challenging circuit.
Absolutely it is. I think, again, when it comes to the combined G corners, oh my goodness me, that was late on the brakes. Also, Jay Cancel, the toggle wipers button, definitely bound for him. Obviously, no Terrell Pfizer in these cars, but you can toggle the wipers. Obviously, Mitchell Murray would be the one to take eventual victory at the number 16. A fantastic drive over the course of the 20 minutes. And I think we've all been there and done it at some point, lads. I mean, we've gone for a bit of a spin and in panic or in trying to catch the wheel, we've toggled the wipers or pressed something, turned the pit limiter on, something adjacent to that. I definitely did it earlier when I was doing some laps around Cadwell Park in the MX-5. Yeah, not ideal to say the least, but nice to see that, of course, he wasn't too distracted by it. One more race left to go then, the Circuito de Navarra. Adam, again, we've already touched on a couple of those challenges. It does seem to be a lot longer, though. Obviously, Oulton Park and Oran Park, narrow, a bit tighter, less opportunity in terms of straight line speed. Navarra, though, completely the opposite. A lot of the circuit taken at high speed, very wide corners, very wide track surface as well, which again is going to open the door, I think, for some, well, very slipstream-esque races and hopefully some good overtakes with it as well.
Absolutely. I think, you're thinking it, Nathan might be thinking, I'm thinking about it. That first section of corners, it's going to be so tricky around there. There's, plenty of opportunities there for overtaking, but there's also plenty of opportunity to go and mess it up. So you got to be really careful when you're in the car on those qualifying laps and that race lap. And I think the first lap is going to be exceptionally sketchy. I've seen plenty of accidents at Navarra in my time of commentating. And I also want to have a look kind of at the I think it's the east side of the circuit. So pointy, so hairpinish, so technical as well. So a lot of our guys are going to be in for a little bit of a surprise when they hit the track for qualifying.
Definitely going to be a challenge indeed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 to the hour at the moment. We'll be back in about 14 or so minutes time for the final heat of the entire series on that road to the grand finals in the British University Sim Racing Series. We're going to step aside for just a moment. Join us back in 14 minutes time, 8 past the hour, for a race around the Circuito de Navarra.
Navarra is going to be very, very intriguing. We kind of already gloss over kind of how the circuit will go. You know, it's really tricky section, that first three corners on the circuit. It's going to be massive. It's basically sweep fast left sweeper into a fast right sweeper into a fast right sweeper into a hairpin. So you've got to really challenge your braking point. Of course, that's going to be trying to brake straight, get the car rotated, and you've got long sweepers as well. You've got a long straight up towards turn number 9, and then you've got some really challenging sections. So Zach, I think they're going to be really in for a massive challenge with everything that is about to forth. As we spoke about, every single track has been really difficult so far. They've all had their challenges. The easiest is arguably, as we said, Lime Rock. So, what kind of challenge are you expecting around here in Navarra?
Navarra, of course, comes into this one with its own challenges, like we alluded to. Particularly turn 1 and 2, I think, is one of the big dividers, right? Because of course you've got that flat out right-hander, not really a corner, but then it really starts to tighten up. You kind of treat turn 1, 2 and 3 all as this one long continuous radius all the way through into where it really tightens up right at the top at turn number 3. You're setting yourself up, you're dancing with the car, you're using the brakes mainly to help rotate and also trying to keep the revs up, and then of course get the car in as straight as line as possible for the braking into where it tightens up at turn number 3. And then also on top of that, still get yourself a good exit, because off of turn 3 into the flat out left-hander of 4, it's all about minimizing that distance, a downhill run into a very long left-hander that tightens up at the crest into a very fast chicane. It's a very big challenge in terms of really balancing the car and again making sure the car it's got as stable platform as possible in order to really get the braking done. And Nathan, I think this is going to be one of these circuits that really is going to challenge the driver's skill level. We spoke about the MX-5, I've touched on already, limited grip, limited braking performance, and also as well on top of that limited power. And the Circuito de Navarra, it's a very big circuit. All three of those things you need to absolutely nail, otherwise you're going to be bogged down and really struggling to keep yourself at a high enough speed to contest with the rest of the field.
Yeah, definitely. I think the main thing about Navarra is the fact there's lots of high, heavy braking zones, which is going to be difficult. With the Mazda, you've got to get it perfect, and you've got to kind of push the car through and slide it through the corner on the brakes, which is difficult to do. And if you can master it, you'll be flying. If not, you'll be losing pace. So I think that's one thing that these drivers need to contest with. But also there's lots of medium speed corners and high speed corners, and with the Mazdas not having the most downforce and they're being quite heavy and light on the steering, you've also got to get the perfect line through the corner, because you've got to carry as much speed as possible and not afford understeering out wide, which is easy to do. So it is going to be a difficult track, and I don't think it's one that is really made for the Mazdas.
Not at all, no. It's made for, obviously, big cars, GT, bikes, that sort of thing. But the Mazdas, I mean, they're very capable of racing on it. I think we will be bashing off the rev limiter, don't get me wrong. But I think it's just going to add to the character, if you will. Let's take a look at the standings after, of course, 8 of our 9 races complete before that run to the grand finals. Jack Mace, Mitchell Marie, Fabian McEwen, the top 3. Jack Mace looks to be a bit of debate as to whether or not to call him the champion of this series, but I think that's going to be reserved, the title, for those that win in the grand final. Jack Mace, I guess we could give him the heat winner, if you like, or the top point scorer of the heats, but he currently sits at 159. That's not done and done. In fact, actually, no, it is 27 points clear of Mitchell Marie. There is nothing that Mitchell can do in order to close that gap with just 26 points available. Fabian McEwen, 131, sits third from Daniel Solon. Tom Ballantyne inside the top 5 from Malachi Greenwich, who of course isn't attending today. Brad Safish, Jake Ansel and Raul Lagas, the same for those, of course. They're doing a pretty decent job staying inside the top 10 and again contending on a day where not too many people have showed up. Alexander Hughes, Brent Driscoll from Joel Pennell, Andrea Muscarella and Giuseppe Lofaro, who of course have been absent over this evening's proceedings. Andrea Muscarella could have been with us, opted not to, unfortunately, so hopefully we'll be able to see them out for the grand finals in a few weeks' time. Of course, Adam, again, while we can't crown Jack Mace as a champion of this series just yet, potentially, if he really does perform at the grand finals in a few weeks' time, what it does mean is that he's filled with confidence. He's the one leading the way. He is the one that can hold his head up high and again go in with that confidence, knowing that off the back of 9 races, heading into again 9 races at the grand finals, he's got that consistency, he's got that pace, he's got that determination to come out on top.
Indeed, it's just one of those where it's like I've said it a lot off camera, but it's very kind of NASCAR style. You have your regular points champion, but of course we don't want to really call him a champion. So he's just the kind of the heat champion, or heat points leader. But as we said, we go to Nottingham, everything gets worked. It's a clean board, it's a clean slate. But yes, these drivers have got a lot of confidence. We talk about how Jack Mace has maybe got the most confidence out of everyone. I think everyone's got a bit of confidence. Everyone now has got the feeling of the car. Everyone has now got the feeling of the tracks. Navarra will be on the Grand Finals calendar. Of course, we will have 6 races in that, but we'll take the shorter layout. So we'll guide you through that when we get into qualifying. But at this moment in time, it is very much one of those where you're now looking at who may has that upper edge, who is really homing in on their skills, crafting the perfect recipe. And as you can see there is the schedule. It is Oulton Park ticked off, Oran Park ticked off, to now the Circuito de Navarra, just in the north of Spain. This one is going to be massively different. I expect fireworks in this one.
Well, hopefully we can get them. I don't think we've quite got the budget for fireworks, and also in a few weeks at the Grand Finals, I think that's flagged up on a risk assessment, having the pyrotechnics. Nonetheless, of course, we've ticked off Oulton Park, we've ticked off Oran Park, as we've said, and now we go to a circuit that you cannot get the names modelled up on, Circuito de Navarra, quite distinctly different, and again, distinctly different in terms of the racing style we're going to get. It's a full Grand Prix layout, it's a full Grand Prix circuit, unlike the other two, more club style, more tight and twisty. Navarra, while it's still got that element of tight and twisty, it's wide open in terms of the racing that we can get, but also who could be racing at the front end of the field. There's so many different ways you can look at it. This, of course, some B-roll of Phoenix, one of the many circuits that we've taken to over the duration of the last few weeks. It was one that definitely spurred up a bit of intrigue a couple of weeks ago, and Jack Mace was bitterly disappointed it wasn't the full oval layout. But Rovals as a whole definitely have spiced things up. We had the same at Charlotte, of course, like I said, we had the same at Phoenix, and I think through all of our 8 races thus far, heading into the 9th, Nathan, again, it's been just top notch. I mean, very quickly before we jump into qualifying, who do you think's going for pole?
Oh, that's a question and a half thrown at me. I'm going to go for Mitchell Marie, just because I think, based off what we saw in Oran Park, a very difficult track, one that everybody struggled with. I think this is another example of a track people will struggle with, and Mitchell Marie just seems to kind of get them under his belt quite quickly. So I'm going to go for Mitchell Marie for pole, but I think Ballantyne, Mays can be there as well, and maybe a surprise on someone a little bit further back like McKean or Ansel. You never know what drivers can throw out, but yeah, I'd imagine Mitchell Marie could be the one for pole this time. I'm
sorry, lads, you're stuck with me for qualifying and the race, because me and Nathan collectively make up one commentator between our voices, as you probably have heard over this one. So Adam, it's I hope you've done your back workouts. I know you're a very regular gym goer. I reckon your pull days are coming in clutch now, where you've got me and Nathan on your back. It's going to be quite difficult. Nonetheless, these drivers, of course, have got the I guess, how much pressure do you think they've got on their shoulders, Adam? Because again, largely these races, I don't want to say inconsequential, because they're not. They are still a great opportunity to give these drivers that leg up, that foundation, of course, the skills that they need, the consistency, the extra track time in a very difficult car to master. But how much pressure do you think they're feeling, knowing that the points are going to be wiped when we go to the Grand Finals in 3 weeks anyway?
I don't think there's going to be a lot of pressure on these drivers. It's the last round. You're not battling for P1 in this one. Jack Mace are all kind of wrapped up at this point, so you're just out there for either learnings or a bit of fun in the minute, and that's probably why we have a bit of a lack of a grid. It's just because there's not much point in going for that. Going for this round, you could rather maybe spend a bit of time maybe focusing on other things in your life. But now we kind of find we're at a point where these are going to be pretty crucial points for our drivers to pick up whatever they possibly can ahead of the grand final. So, don't put on pressure on yourself, which I know is so easy to do. It's about going out there, having a little bit of fun, and also taking the learning from whatever you get here into the grand finals. I'm sure there'll be a lot of prep over the next 3 weeks for all these guys. So, whatever they do in those 3 weeks, I think it's going to be pretty crucial in the run-up to when we head to Confetti X.
Yes, certainly. Lots of preparation for the drivers to do as we head our way to the grand finals. But back with qualifying here on our screens, and at the moment we are getting the first laps underway around Circuito de Navarra. And at the moment, Fabian McKeon's quickest, but hasn't got a lap time yet. So, of course, that will all change about when drivers get lap times registered onto the board. But I think one thing to notice as well, Zach, heading into this is, we see here from Mitchell Marie, lots of sliding about. Now, I don't know how much it will affect the tyre wear or the tyre temperature, but if there is going to be a lot of sliding, maybe later in the race there could be a bit of an effect on some of the cars.
No, tyres are so sensitive on the MX-5, right? I've done quite a few laps of them over the last couple of days in preparation for round number 3 of the British Sim Racing Cup at Cadwell. And the car is just unbelievably sensitive to tyre temps, to overdriving, to underdriving. I always say the MX-5, not a bad car to jump into as your first one, right? It teaches you so many of the fundamental dynamics that you need, right? Throttle control, brake trace, trail braking, anything like that. It really does teach you in bucket loads, right? But that's only when you start to drive it at a very high level, when you're really starting to extract the most out of the car. And of course, to someone who's jumping into a car for their first time, cold tyres maybe not going to make a huge amount of difference. But at this level where you've got Mitchell Murray, Tom Ballantyne, Jack Mace all battling towards the sharp end of the field, whoever can maximise their outlap ahead of their 3 push laps is going to be a huge advantage, because you have that extra level of grip. You can brake that fraction later, you can come off the brakes that fraction earlier, carry just that little bit more speed, use a little bit less steering, and have that confidence in the car, have a little bit more grip. And trust me, it goes a long, long way. Even just a couple of degrees extra in the tyre can equate to 2 or 3 tenths of a second, especially a really big, long lap like Navarra. Trust me, it's going to make a huge difference. So those that have been able to maximise it, of course, are going to be at an advantage. The other thing as well is, because they've got the 3 push laps, they have an outlap and 3 consecutive push laps. Over the course of those 3 push laps, there's no point cooling the tyre down, because you're working hard to generate that temperature. I would say at a circuit like Navarra, the tyres are going to be at their peak just in time for the end and the beginning, the end of the second lap and the beginning of the third. So expect to see pole come in right at the depth of it if they're really able to hook it up on some warm tyres.
Jake Ansell, I think sorry, I apologize. I think this is Fabian McKeon heading through that last corner, so he's going to be on for a decent lap. Jake Ansell is the only one who's set a lap time in the minute, 1:59.375. We'll see if he gets beaten. We see the Irishman coming over the line. I'm sure that will refresh in just a moment, unless he's gone off the circuit. So you'll be able to get your time with about maybe 4 minutes left of the session, and in fact it is coming up to that. So you've also got to factor in an outlap. So I think this is going to pretty much, as you say, Zach, come in right at the depth. So just seeing a couple of more drivers heading over the line. That is going to be Tom Ballantyne, who's managed to pop himself back up into the top 5 in the title standings. He could very easily go out and potentially even steal a 3rd place by the end of this, but that was not the best entry in towards the first couple of corners. Really intriguing to see how everyone goes about this. He said, Zach, so much can happen in this. The tyres are going to be such a factor in this, which I'm sure the drivers are still trying to learn as they go on about this, because we speak about how they what they might do in university. Some are mechanic engineers, so they only might know about maybe the setup of the car. You've got to think about every single ounce of this when you come to a series like the Masters. And Nathan, very much of how you've got to absolutely maximise absolutely everything. This.
Yes, definitely. For me, because I'm not that good at the game and I'm not the best driver, my kind of role is I'll get in the car and hope it works. I don't bother touching setups, I just drive. And that's when I'll get hounded by friends, because luckily I've got a lot of friends who are quite high up in the iRated and in the sim racing world, and that's when I get hounded of, why are you using this brake bias, why are you doing this, why are you doing that? Then I'll get told to change things. Up until then I'll just drive. Probably explains why I've just gotten to 1.4k on my iRated, but
you start at 1500. Hang on.
Uh?
You start at 1500 iRating. How have you managed to
Well, I
work
said
up
at
240?
1.1k end of last year, so
Unbelievable.
yeah, less said the
Richard.
better.
Unbelievable.
But no, this is one of those tracks which I hate as a rookie level driver, someone who's not that quick. It's difficult, and so far these drivers I think are doing a perfect job, even though some of them are probably quite new. You know, obviously you've got lots of Mitchell Murray and Jack Mays, Tom Ballantyne that you can tell play the game a lot, but others might not be as common on the game. So we'll have to just see, how they can do. And so far, they're setting some decent laps.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you've got to hand it to these guys, and the good thing as well is for the MX-5, everything is stripped, right? So it's a fixed setup. You can't change the brake bias, so there's another element taken out of the drivers. It really is just a case of you get in and drive, which for some, easy, right? You jump in, you go. For others, maybe someone who's a bit more in tune. Take Tom Ballantyne, for example, or Daniel Solin, if he was able to join us this evening. Of course, he is the highest iRater of the entire field at 5.5k. For a driver like that, of course, the brake bias and those minor adjustments do make such a big difference. But I think, when you're just starting out, it's so much better just to, like Nathan said, get in and drive. The more you worry about setup and brake bias, the more the more you make those excuses, right? The more you're inhibiting your own progress. If you put everything down to, oh, well, Brendan Lee's got a better setup than me, or, oh, Brendan Lee's running this brake bias, and putting that down to the reason you're a second and a half slower than him, it's not the case in the slightest. I always said, assume you're the problem first, because the brake bias and those minor changes are only going to equate to, up to half a second a lap. Anything beyond that, you've got to look at your own driving. You've got to take a very introspective look and try and see, are you nailing your braking points? Are you nailing your apexes? Are you getting on the power early? That is the crucial thing in this MX-5, is how quickly can you come off the brake and get back on the power?
Of course, the Mazda will teach you a lot of techniques. You've just got to try and, find them. You've got to dig deep and really just try and look out for them. This is going to be what I believe is Tom Ballantyne in the all-black number 66 car as he heads away now over the line. He has decided to rejoin us after his demise at Oran Park, but that time on the board is not present for him. Heading their way in towards the right-handed hairpin. That number 66 is really struggling to maybe get the car in, and he's back on the brakes as well, and he's stopped on the circuit, and that's going to be it for Tom Ballantyne. 7 seconds left to go, and he's not going to get another lap in. So that will be qualifying done and dusted. And Nathan, arguably a surprise in there?
Well, I was right. By 8 tenths is Mitchell Murray. My skills, my knowledge comes out again, of course. Zach wouldn't know much about that. But yeah, so Mitchell Murray's on pole, and hopefully he'll go through and take the race win. But I think the great thing to see there is an example of a track which is difficult, because normally we see a lot closer lap times. Yes, we had very competitive lap times, but the gaps were way bigger. That just proves a tricky track of Navarra, of course.
Yeah, Navarra is incredibly difficult. We'll get on to the topic of Nathan absolutely rinsing me, and then the discussion to Paul Crawford is the fact that he can't be the steward because he's biased against me. No, I don't care that much. It's fine. Nonetheless, at least our camera works, and we're not coughing every 5 seconds, so it's all good. Nonetheless, we'll of course run you through the grid and everything in a few moments' time, ahead, of course, of the final heat to decide who is the, I'm going to steal this from our production manager, the hottest of the heats. I think that is mathematically confirmed to be Jack Mace on that run into the grand finals. But Adam, again, for these drivers, it's their final race, their final opportunity ahead of that 2 or 3 week break until the grand finals. They're going to go out and, like you say, they're going to give us some metaphorical fireworks to end off.
Yeah, indeed. I think they're just going to go out there and enjoy themselves. This is kind of potentially another race for them, and then they'll kind of lock in for the grand finals. It'll be really interesting to see. It's one thing to think about, like, who's going to turn up already here from the commentary side. But here is the grid. Mitchell Murray will be on pole position with Jack Mace alongside him. Jake Ansell will be on the second row with Fabian McEwen. Raul Largas will be on the third row, and there'll be Ballantyne. Away we go, Zach.
We do indeed. A good launch from the front row, of course, for Mitchell Murray and Jack Mace. Those two will be doing battle towards turn number 1. Of course, 3 wide in the background between McEwen, Lagos and Ballantyne. Tom trying to negotiate his way through. Defensive to the inside goes the number 7 of Jack Mace, as the 16 of Mitchell Murray will try and go up and then underneath. Up over the curb, though, and that's going to open the door to the inside. Goes Mitchell Murray. He tries to take the lead of the race, but there's contact. And Mitchell Murray gets sent round. Damage to the front end. And that is going to be his race. Effectively done and dusted through the opening 3 corners. Jack Mace will now lead from Jake Ansell.
Yes, and the commentary curse comes into play, but we'll leave that one for another time because I know Zach hates that saying. But yes, Mitchell Murray down to the back of the field. Big shame for him, and has to just try and work his way back up the field. A battle further back as well as Tom Ballantyne trying to make a couple of moves and work his way up the field. But a replay of what happened, little bit of contact between the two. And of course Mitchell Murray's car very unstable on the exit of the corner, spins round and of course damage, and that's pretty much his race done. I'd imagine he's still probably got a lot of damages there. He is flying through with a bonnet halfway up in the air.
An interesting sight to the opening lap of this race, and Jack Mace is going to just continue to try and latch here on to potentially what could be Mitchell Murray, but of course he's now in the lead of this one after that chaotic opening lap, and there is the broken car there of Mitchell Murray. So apologies, kind of missed that on that part. I was looking at elsewhere, but Mace will just try and push out front the points leader, in free air. So he's just going to try and really work with what he's got at the moment now. And I think look behind him, you're just seeing Fabian McEwen down in towards right-hander and on towards that main straight we go. Ballantyne managed to put himself from the back of the grid or on towards second. How big of a start has he had?
It's been a great start, of course, for 5 of 6 of our drivers. You can see they're all in the Serpentine as they run their way through towards turn number 1 and 2. Jack Mace, the one in control, and for an oval racer, he's not doing too bad at these clockwise circuits. Over the curb and over the AstroTurf, really getting that rotation as a spin there from 3rd position. Fabian McEwen goes round. He's collected the likes of Raul and Jake Hansen as well. So the 2-horse race up in front, you can see the 66 of Tom Ballantyne now trying to put some pressure as they wiggle their way through towards turn number 5. The 07 from the 66. The two of them, of course, having a bit of banter, having a bit of fun, trying to go out with a bit of a bang for the final round of heats. Fabian McEwen recovering quite well. He stays in 3rd. A look to the inside between Raul Largas and Jake Ansell. Nicely done, but spun once again up over the crest. The undulation proving to be brutal. Let's take a look. Replay, Nathan, as to the spin there from Fabian McEwen.
Yeah, and yet again, it's a little bit like what we saw happen to Jake Ansell literally about 10 seconds ago. Many drivers are having spins here and just proving how difficult of a track that Navarra is. Of course, the undulation doesn't help, but also the fact that they've got to force the cars through and rotate on the brakes makes it very lively, and of course ends up in spins. And once you lose the Mazda, you got no way of catching it, so you just have to wait for it to go all the way around and kind of put it into neutral, turn the key off, turn it back off again, on again, and off you go. You have to pretty much do a hard reset and get going once again. And of course here is Fabian McEwen down in 5th place at the moment, but at least it's not last. I suppose he'll be looking at it that way. Never mind, no, he'll be in 4th place as Raul Largas is behind him, and then it'll be Mitchell Murray at the back, and then of course our top 2. How surprising, it's Jack Mace and Tom Ballantyne.
It is indeed. On towards the main straight we go. And Jack Mace is potentially going to have to go pretty defensive. Look at the helicopter shot here. Tom Ballantyne gaining, slowly catch the monkey and in towards that first part of the sweeper. He's got his nose alongside here and will potentially go and take the lead. But can he survive on the brakes there, using as little steering as he possibly can? And unlike Fabian McEwen, he doesn't try and audition for Formula Drift. Tom Ballantyne squeezes on through, heads his way through that 4th corner. And look at the gap he's already pulled there. Jack Mace also picks up the fast lap of the race, and I think that kind of weave there is the telltale sign for Jack Mace to basically say, let's have a little bit of fun. We're miles ahead of the pack. we're really, we're absolutely doing incredibly well. We're 7 seconds. Let's just put on a little bit of a show for these guys. Fabian McEwen is still sitting third in there at this moment in time, so he's going to now just try and take a third place, whatever he possibly does.
No, exactly that. It definitely is a race for third. I mean, in the opening race, Jack Mason and Tom Ballantyne were doing their best to keep everyone in contention for as long as possible until about 4 laps to the end, where they decided to just absolutely bolt it. And now they're keeping each other company out there on circuit. Hopefully, we can see some tandem drifts. It definitely is possible in the MX-5 if you use some of that weight shift and get it sideways, especially on a bit of grass or pressure turf. You can hold a pretty substantial slide, to be fair. Mitchell Marie, by the way, back out on circuit, and really good to see this level of determination from the number 16, who of course was involved with contact at turn number 3 on the opening lap on the inside of Jack Mason. That was effectively race done. But again, good to see that despite that, you've done the practice, you've put in the hours. As frustrated as you might well be, Nathan, you don't want that to go to waste. You do want to get yourself to the checkered flag and just at the very least have that vindication of making it through the race, even if the points ultimately don't matter. You put the work in, you put the practice in, you want the result.
Yeah, I mean, even if you finish P6, what looks better on a standing sheet, P6 or a DNF? I know exactly which one I'd go for, and of course, you might get this situation heading into the grand finals, and that's the last place that you want to be DNFing in. So you've got to kind of, at this point, learn just to put up with getting to the end, even though you've got no way of coming back into the race. You've got to learn that now. So when it happens in the grand finals, you're like, right, it's happened before. I just need to drive. I know what to do. Instead of DNFing early, and then you get to the grand finals and you do the same again, and you've got 2 or 3 DNFs on your sheet. There's no point doing that. You might as well just go to the end and also take your points. Yes, of course, we know these get wiped, but still it's another 18 odd points on the board, so you won't be saying no to that, surely. Of course, we have another battle here for the lead once again. Ballantyne and Jack Mace still going at it, and I'd imagine these two, they want to be together on track because they know that they're likely, unless there's any other entries that are really quick, will be battling for the lead in the grand finals, or at least battling up there.
Indeed, they don't want to be battling too hard amongst each other, because of course if you battle way too hard, you'll take yourself and plunge yourself back into the car behind. So you don't really want to be doing that too much. But you look at the 9-second gap that Tom Ballantyne has to Fabian McEwen, you think that's a massive gap. But if they come to collide to Ballantyne and Mason, you've got a whole hunk of issues. And just as kind of a reminder for all of our viewers, this is a fixed setup event, so no setup changes can be made. Absolutely nothing. It is your bog standard Mazda MX-5. What you see is what you get with this car, so it is all going to be down to the drivers. And also set at the beginning of this championship was one quick repair. So if you crash your car, you get you get transported back to the pits. You have one very quick repair. You can use that once at the entire championship. We now see Jack Mace heading to the inside line. Is he going to be able to do it on the brakes? He heads his way in towards 2 through 3, but he's going to have to stop back in behind Tom Ballantyne. But yeah, back to the actually no, we'll continue with this for now. Jack Mace still sitting there behind Ballantyne. And in terms of what is happening next with that pit quick stop, yeah, everyone will be wanting to use that in the grand finals when big points are at stake.
Of course, the fast repair applicable per race as Raul Lagas versus Fabian McEwen. They get themselves through turn number 5, and they're looking to the outside there, trying to work a way through. On the inside, the number 19 of Lagas gets it stopped, bumps his way over the curb. Very soft suspension, these MX-5 Cup cars. You definitely can feel that body roll all the way round through the corner, that lateral load, and loading up the tyres. One of the ways to really drive the most out of this car, get the most out of it, is to load up the specific tyres that you want. And that's why, Nathan, an undulating circuit like Navarra, where we have those crests where the tyres lift up and that contact patch reduces, do we then start to see these spins? It's not because the car is too overpowered that they're sending too much torque to the rear wheels. It's that the car literally isn't generating enough grip in order to have that traction be put down to the surface. One thing that must be said, though, is Tom Ballantyne and Jack Mace having zero problems with this up in front. The 07 and the 66 virtually identical on pace and looking very, very strong running in front as we approach half distance of this race here at Navarra. Look to the inside from Tom Ballantyne though. He gets it stopped through the final corner. The switchback is on from Jack Mace as they'll drag race their way once again towards turn number 1.
Of course, and I think once again, our top level drivers, those near the top, are proving that this car's very easy to drive but very difficult to master, and of course the challenges of the undulating circuit and less contact onto the floor with the tyres, that comes with having to push the car more. Like these two have to do as they head their way up in towards the first couple of corners, and still Jack Mace retaining that lead, but back up the inside goes Tom Ballantyne onto the brakes, but he goes wide, and Jack Mace once again on the outside line has a good line through the corner as they head their way down the hill. And I think Jack Mace might have just got it back, but of course Ballantyne's on the inside line as they head down, but he just decides to tuck back in behind and continue on. But of course, like I said, when you start to receive less contact on the floor, that's when the drivers are pushing more into the corners, especially when they're trying to rotate on the brakes, and you've got to kind of slide the car through, and that's not an issue for these who might be a little bit slower because they're not taking enough speed through the corner anyway. They might be 10 or 15 km/h slower, but that adds a lot in to pushing the car. So I think that's something we always see. Drivers who are very good tend to struggle less because they kind of know what they're doing, and these who aren't struggling with it just aren't going fast enough to have to deal with it. So if anything, it's a bit of a saving grace for them.
Indeed it is. And Jack Mace will have to continue to be defensive and hold up his defence mechanism up against Tom Ballantyne, but that was kind of short-lived, and Ballantyne will find the gap there on the inside line. He's now forced onto the outside for this right-hander, so he's going to have to try a pretty incredible switchback, which he's just about able to do. What about Fabian McEwen? We checked back with him after his application that was sent in for Formula Drift. Not sure if that was successful or approved. We'll have to ask him maybe at the grand finals. But Raul Lagas in front of him. Of course, Lagas hasn't been too bad. He's been pretty competitive in this one, and he's aiming for his first podium of the series. So he'll be on an absolute high if he can end this series off with a podium plate before heading to, of course he will be staying in his own place, but to the grand final where the points are going to be absolutely high in stakes here. Ballantyne will switch back to the inside line but won't attack Mace this time. Maybe just try and send him a little bit wide on the exit of the hairpin, but again strong defence here from Jack Mace. Again on towards centre before the sweeper could play a little bit of a part here, Zach.
Indeed so. This long left-hander again combined G as we cut away for just a moment. We've been strolled by Raul Lagas. Tom Ballantyne versus Jack Mace up in front. Of course, those two still, I reckon, side by side on that run towards the 90-degree or just over 90-degree right-hander at the back end of the circuit. Following this battle, though, Lagas keeping tabs for the podium position very nicely. Fabian McEwen trying to keep him honest. Jay Cancel as well trailing this duo by about 2.7 seconds now, but his last couple of lap times have been about a second and a half quicker than those in front, so we could yet still have 3 cars involved in the fight for the lead. The top 2 still separated by, well, next to nothing, with just 6 minutes and 41 seconds left on the clock. Insta Heavy's breaking down on the circuit, and a look to the inside there from the 128 of Fabian McEwen. That's going to send Raul Lagas wide, and it's those half-hearted moves that, Nathan, that can definitely see you take a one-way trip to the steward's room.
Definitely. A little bit like what we saw in the last round. I think the main one was Phoenix, where we did see a couple of late moves, and of course I think one of them did end up in a penalty from that. And of course, lots of Barasathish, who got 10 seconds in total, it harms a race. And yes, maybe in this race it wouldn't matter too much because of the gaps being quite big, but in most of our other races a 10-second penalty could drop you from first down to maybe 5th or 6th. So yeah, you've got to be very careful on when you choose to pick your moves, but having 9 races here in this championship helps so much for the drivers just because they know maybe each of the race. And I've mentioned this before, Tom Ballantyne and Jack Mace heading into the grand finals, knowing they're probably going to be battling a lot. Ballantyne needs to know how aggressive Jack Mace is. If he's aggressive, he's going to move out the way and let him through in some occasions. But if he knows he's a little bit more passive, he might just he might be happy just to kind of stay on that line because he knows Jack Mace isn't going to go for the send. So it's all about learning your opponents, as we do see a move potentially here for third between Fabian McKeon and Jake Ansell, who've also seen a lot of each other this evening, just because the top two have been very, very high up the road a lot of the times, and Ryan Lagas has just been trying to catch up with them.
Indeed there. We have a look back here, helicopter camera style, with Jack Mace. These two have been, right on each other's tail, but I think Tom Valentine has always just had the upper hand on this occasion. We've seen
Anybody
how fast he can be.
Adam, Zach?
I'm here. Apologies, because my microphone decided to mute. So I was just going to say we had a great helicopter camera shot there of Valentine and Mace. Valentine just seems to have got the upper hand at this moment in time. He's been super, super quick. We saw how quick he was at Heat 1, where he won all 3 races. But it just kind of Oran Park, where it became Tom Valentine's kryptonite to head their way in towards the one of the penultimate corners on the racing circuit. And look at the fastest laps again, 156.9. That's unbelievable there from Tom Valentine. I think he's just going to be a man full of confidence, and if he makes it to the grand final, you've got to kind of put him in the hat for the favourite to win the entire thing. So with 4 minutes left to go, is this battle potentially still on, or is Jack May starting to piece her off just that little bit?
We'll have to wait and see. I'm sure Tom Valentine maybe will be a bit nicer to his rival out on circuit, but potentially as well. He might just be, pushing the button and say, you know what, no, you can sod off now. I'm gonna put the hammer down. I'm gonna start driving away with a bit more vigor. You can see that last lap, 6 tenths in favour of Tom Valentine, 57.1 to a 57.8. Valentine to Mace, but again, it's easy for things to go wrong here at Navarra, as Fabian McKeown is going to prove braking just a little bit too much lock, a little bit too much lateral load as you get onto the brakes. And again, Nathan, we've been talking about loading up different tyres. We've been talking about those lateral loads, especially through turns 1, 2 and into 3. If you brake just that little bit hard, you downshift that little bit too quickly, send too much torque to those rear wheels, especially on the downshifts, it is almost a one-way ticket to getting yourself sideways.
Yes, certainly. I know a lot about braking a little bit too late, shifting there at the wrong time, turning at the same time, and I'll just go straight, and I'm like, great, this has ended well. And after that, your tyres get a little bit too hot, you get a little bit angry yourself, so you've got hot tyres, a hot head, doesn't then tend to end well. So I'm hoping that these drivers don't suffer with that, and they can kind of make their way through quite nicely. And of course, if they do notice that they are going wide in some corners, they are sliding a lot on the tyres, maybe they're going to start realising now, well, I hope they have done over the last 8 races, started to realise how not to do that. And of course that sets them well up for the grand final, because of course it's all good being fast, but it's about being fast consistently. And if you make a mistake every 2 laps and you lose a second every time, doesn't matter if you're 5 tenths quicker than everybody else, because you're still going to drop behind. So it's about learning to be consistently quick, or at least not consistently slow. Which I think over the course of I think this race is the one to ignore, because we've got like a 17-second gap between the top 3. But apart from this race, I think we've seen over all the others how quickly drivers have kind of got comfortable with the car, and the gap's starting to get really close. I mean, look at Phoenix. You had like the top 5 battling every lap. In round 1, we would never have saw that happen.
Indeed, and continuing with this battle, and you were saying about Phoenix and how close that was. I think that was one of the more quality races over the course of the season. I saw so much kind of happening in that one. Everyone was just tail to bumper, and I think that was, especially with the lack of knowledge that almost everyone had about that circuit, and it came to real fruition that it was one of the the best on the racing circuit. So all the best kind of heat we had, that was all the way back at Heat 2 on the previous stream last week. But looking back to this battle, and again, I think Jack Mason really started to piece her off here from Tom Valentine. Again, the tyres may have just fallen out a little bit, because of course the heat here in Spain can get pretty warm, if I do say so myself. I'm sure the guys on my left and my right have been to Spain plenty of times, and they've really felt the summer or heat or whatever. So yeah, it can get pretty warm around here. We are going to be going on to that final lap of this race here, Zach, and if you to pick a winner of this one, would it be Tom Valentine, or would you say, well, Jack Mace is still in it?
Jack Mace physically is here. Whether he is realistically in the shout for the for contention for the race victory, we'll have to wait and see. He's managing the gap now a bit better. He's been able to find a bit more lap time, but is the damage done heading on to the final lap of the race? To answer your question, I have been to Spain. It was at the beginning of the year, down to Cárcel de Campeos for the Rotax Max Challenge Winter Cup. And it wasn't very warm at all. It was quite underwhelming, actually. Go to Spain for some winter testing. It'll be nice and warm, they said, and it just wasn't. I say it wasn't. It was about 14, 15 degrees and quite overcast, to be honest. It was a bit miserable. Northern Italy was a bit better last week. Not too bad, but we'll wait and see as the days improve. In the UK, though, it's looking a little bit less doom and gloom. We went the first 3 months of the year with rain somewhere every single day. I think that streak to some extent is over, even though there was snow at Silverstone yesterday, which again, weird enough. Nonetheless, we're on the final lap of the race, Nathan. It's been a good one. Tom Valentine, though, now 1.4 seconds clear of Jack Mace.
Indeed, so now for Tom Valentine, it's just get it to the end. You don't need to start pushing and doing heroics, just get the car to the end. You're not going to lose 1.4 seconds over a sector and a half. So yeah, it should just be a cruise now to the finish, and of course for Jack Mace, easy P2 as well for him, being 20 seconds ahead of Jake Ansell, who I thought again has done a really great job. Of course, only joined us for race 4 onwards, and has settled in quite nicely. A couple of podiums to his name, so I think he'll be set up well for the grand finals. I believe Jake Ansell at the Uni of Wolverhampton, so not too far away from me. So if we do get any rain in the grand finals, I think he'd be used to that quite nicely already. But yeah, only a couple of corners to go, and yes, Valentine looks to probably wrap this one up.
Well, indeed, and Tom Valentine has been a driver in a massive amount of form over the last couple of races. Of course, yeah, he did had that struggle at Oulton Park, but he is one of those drivers who will really come swinging back. He has the most wins out of anybody in this series. Tom Valentine picks up a 5th victory here at Navarra, and it will be Jack Mace to finish second. There is the line. That will be summing up a fantastic finish there for Valentine for Mace. Ansell will come across the line and grab his 2nd podium of the series.
Yeah, good race indeed from Tom Valentine, wrapping it up, his 4th victory, of course, in this championship, looking remarkably strong heading into the grand finals in just a few weeks' time. Jack Mace, though, is the hottest of the heats. The 07 definitely bringing his fiery form coming into the final few races this evening. Bobby McEwen just in behind Jake Ansell, who of course completed the podium. Raul Lagas and Mitchell Marie. What could have been for the number 16, who threw it away in the opening corner, Nathan. I mean, it's become a very regular part of my vernacular, but suboptimal to say the least for Mitchell Marie.
Well, no, I'm not going to call it suboptimal. I'm going to call it the commentator's curse. That's the only reason that he went round on the first lap. Yes, because I said he'd win and he didn't. So yeah, my fault. But no. Jokes aside, I think a big shame for Mitchell Marie, because he would have been there fighting with these three, and that would have been a superb battle between Valentine, Mace and Marie. I mean, that would have been one that would have gone to the end. So yeah, I'll even say great job from Marie, because he's kept going. I mean, I would have parked at the pits now and thought, sod this, I'm not going to continue on. But he has done, and actually he's finished ahead of Raul Lagas according to the timing screen, so at least he didn't finish last somehow.
Indeed, and that kind of really sums up absolutely everything. So there are your final results on the left-hand side, and a really superb job. There is Nathan Richards. I think he's back in
recovered
in all of his wonderful, back in all of his wonderful glory. I'll kind of pass this on to Zach on this one, but I think a little bit more of the dull ones in that case. I think is that kind of maybe down to the nature of Navarra, or is there something else to it?
I mean, Navarra in of itself, we touched on it in qualifying, right? Because it's so long, because it's so wide, because the corners are so complex, that skill gap is only going to grow, right? The more variables you have, the more corners that the drivers have to showcase their extra skill, the gap is only going to get wider and wider throughout the entire thing. A very aggressive launch initially for Jake Hansel, the number 83, and it just tumbled his way down like he's Max Verstappen in Shanghai. Not optimal, to say the least. Very low power are these MX-5s, and this is what happened to Mitchell Marie. I don't know if that's going to be protested. Nathan, I mean, I'll come to you for that one. Did Jack Mace turn in, or was Mitchell Marie closing a gap too much? I mean, was there space? It's a difficult one, and then of course this spin from Fabian McCoon, who just got it all sorts of wrong, going 4th gear into a heavy braking zone, and just locking up the rear tyres as well. But I mean, between Jack Mace and Mitch Marie, what do you make of that particular incident?
Well, Zach, you should say that we need to look into it properly, so I'm not going to make any opinion until I see the incident thoroughly and from both POVs. It's a difficult one because it just seemed like they're both just glued together on the exit, but of course, you know, the stewards, when they have a look, which I'm sure they will, I can see them both in the chat at the moment. Once they have a decision on it, you know, they'll put it through, but it's a hard one. I mean, this is the onboard of it now, isn't it? As they're heading towards the braking zone. It's a difficult one, unless that wasn't it. No, that was me from Tom Ballantyne, never mind. But no, I think Mitchell Marie was a little bit wider coming out the corner. Jack Mace was off track on the exit, so whether that will be something took into consideration. But no, if I'm honest, it's something you need to kind of have a look into, because it's not really a clear-cut incident there, is it? It's a bit of a difficult one, which you get with the Masters a lot.
Yeah, you do. I mean, it always is going to be difficult. For me, and I will give my 2 pennies worth, is Raul Lagas getting it all sorts of wrong through the fast left-handed. Bit of a dip down as well, which definitely does make it a little bit more difficult. I mean, Mitch Marie had, well, a whole postcode to his right-hand side to the apex, but of course the checker flag would fly, and Tom Ballantyne, for the final time before the grand finals, would take victory here at the Circuito de Navarra. Of course, Jack Mace, the hottest of the heats, 1 victory to his name though, and 8 of the 9 top 5s. Jack Mace, consistency is key, and he has absolutely nailed it. Fabian McCoon and Mitchell Marie, only 1 point between them, and Tom Ballantyne, 144. So, over the last 9 races, which by the way, we have 9 races for the grand final, the fight for 2nd, 3rd and 4th came down to just 5 championship points. A reminder, only the top 3 after the grand finals, and the points get reset to 0 over the 9 races on the 16th of April. Only the top 3 get themselves the tickets to a British Touring Car Championship round of their choice. And Nathan, that is scarily close between McEwen Marie and Ballantyne. Daniel Solon, who of course showed potential, took 2 victories in his time in the series, did not, of course, showcase his skills today. He wasn't in attendance, but when he was rapid. Malachi Greenwich as well, one of the more consistent drivers up there. I mean, over the course of, and I'll correct myself here, 6 races for the grand final, it's going to be incredibly close, incredibly tight, incredibly competitive for those BTCC tickets.
Definitely, and I think another thing to mention as well is it'll be 6 races in one day. That's a lot for the drivers to get used to. I think most of the tracks will probably still have, but maybe there's going to be a couple that we don't. We'll have to wait and see when we get the calendar for that. But, of course, heading into that, it also means the drivers are going to be doing pretty much 6 back-to-back races, maybe with the break in between, of course. But that's going to be a lot on their mind, especially if you're fighting for the top 3, heading into the final few races. You've been driving for a couple of hours. It's going to get to your head in the final races, so that's going to be a test of endurance for the drivers heading into this. And there we go, we get the calendar, and the only one I don't see that we had already was Oschersleben, and is that different layers of Charlotte Motor Speedway?
That looks like a mess, to be honest, of Charlotte Motor Speedway. I'm trying to make sense of where on the track it is, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, if that is the layout, it's going to be a bit of a crazy race, to say the least. But of course, Adam, we've got Phoenix, which we've seen, VIR, which we've seen, Oschersleben, which we haven't seen. That is a very difficult circuit, very tight, very narrow. Perfect for these MX-5s, though, through that tight and twisty chicane. Turn 1 and 2 pose their own challenges. Of course, we saw Circuito de Navarra and Oulton Park, but for the 3rd time, the 3rd different layout, we also have the addition, of course, of both the Knickerbock and also before that, the Britain chicane, which we haven't had yet. It's the full Grand Prix layout of the Oulton Park circuit. So 6 fantastic venues to host our grand final.
Oh, I'm really excited, Zach. I'm really, really excited. You know, we're going to be kicking off with Phoenix. You know, that's going to be really exciting. You know, Virginia is going to be highly different. I'm not entirely sure if that's the correct layout we're going to be using. because of course that long kind of layout is very, very difficult for the MX-5. And then we went on to Oschersleben. I'm super excited for Oschersleben. You know, I've seen it, you know, many times with DTM, with the NASCAR Euro Series, some absolutely classic races in there. And do we even dare talk about the first chicane? You know, the famous quote from all those years ago. I think from the eyebrows, Zach Sweeney there. I think best not to. But yeah, Charlotte's going to be definitely different. I'm not sure if the layout is correct for Navarra, so we'll double check that as well. And in Oulton Park, we've seen it as an absolutely fantastic circuit. I'm going to be a little bit biased and say I'd love to have seen like another British track. We've got so many, you know, fantastic British tracks on here, but you know, maybe that could be something for season 2 of the British Sim Racing University Sim Racing Series. Which
track?
One?
Go on.
You put me right on the spot here. I think Donington could be very interesting. No, I think Donington
GP National.
I think if we're going for a beginners, go national. If we get like a lot of or do you want me to be biased then, Zach?
No, go on. What are you going to say?
Brands Hatch GP.
Of course, yeah, it's the one you're closest to. It's the one you can be bothered to get to, isn't it? Of course, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your company over the last 3 weeks. Of course, as we've battled our way through the British University Sim Racing Series, we've now got, well, our grid set for the grand finals. Our contenders are ready. The points will have their great reset back to 0. It is all to play for in 3 weeks' time at Nottingham Trent University. Of course, for the grand finals, that fight for 3 sets of British Touring Car Championships. My name has been Zach Sweeney. I've been your host. Adam Reed and Nathan Richards have been your commentators through the championship. Join us in a few weeks' time when we crown our champion.